Chapter 1175. Shui Leihan blinked. 10,000 times more confused? Even more? Chu Yang groaned. Big brother, who are those two people? Shui Leihan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You think I dare to ask? Chu Yang grabbed the wine cup and downed 3 cups. He didn't care if he was troubled or not, he would drink first. This wine was very hard to come by. Shui Leihan shook his head and smiled. Then he looked at the white snow in the distance. His eyes were somewhat fascinated. When can I reach that level? Chu Yang curled his lips and said, Your level is already miles away from my Leduo. You actually still have a goal. Shui Leihan smiled. He picked up the wine pot and filled Chu Yang's cup again. Then he poured another cup for himself. This wine pot was very small. It looked like it could only hold 2 cups of wine. But now that he had poured out 30 cups, there was still an inexhaustible amount of wine inside. Brother Chu, now you won't suspect that I'm playing with you, right? Shui Leihan smiled. I won't. Chu Yang said dejectedly, Of course I won't doubt those 2 almighties either. With their cultivation, if they were to specifically toy with me like this, and if they had planned to toy with me 120,000 years ago, then it would really be my supreme honor. You're nothing. They specially played with you? Shui Leihan sneered and said, They're not even interested in playing with me. Which interest? Chu Yang's eyes widened seriously. He asked seriously, Is it interest? Or sexual interest? How to play with you? Suddenly, some unbearable images appeared in his mind. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. Get lost. Shui Leihan shouted angrily. Looking at the dirty expression on his face, he really wanted to blow this guy into shreds. Actually, I don't care about these at all. Chu Yang said, I don't have so many long-term plans. My habit is that when I take this step I'll be sure of the next step. But when I haven't taken this step, when I haven't gained a firm footing, I never think about things that are too far away. He said seriously, If you think too far away you'll be afraid. Fear will make us involuntarily intimidated. Once you're intimidated, you'll never be able to achieve your goal. Shui Leihan was silent for a moment. That makes sense. So, when you tell me about those 2 people and the origin of Calamity Sword, I'll just treat it as a story, Chu Yang said casually. I'll listen and remember it. That's all, nothing more. Shui Leihan smiled. That's more like you. What I admire the most is your carefree attitude. Perhaps you think that this is a kind of free and easy, but in my opinion, this is a kind of freedom. It's a kind of ruthlessness. Chu Yang nodded. Perhaps it is the current me. She wasn't as vicious and irritable as she was in my previous life. Furthermore, that arrogance and resentment was slowly fading away. But I could feel it myself. It hasn't disappeared, it's hidden in my heart. Your heart won't change, but it can be concealed, Chu Yang said. I will not change my mind. That's enough for a lifetime. Shui Leihan smiled. Actually, the reason why I chose to stand out now was also because of your earlier confusion. Just as you are lamenting about human nature, am I not the same? However, as the saying goes, the human heart can be punished. The human heart can be taught. That's a wise saying. Shui Leihan said, In the ancient times of the continent, everyone was like this. No one was poor, no one was rich. At that time, everyone helped each other. Finally, when it came to a dividing line, there were strong and weak, rich and poor. The rich began to bully the poor, and then there was rule. After that, there was a long period of order in the world. Until today, the strong became stronger. The weak became weaker, and so there was competition. The world's way and people's hearts were originally good, but driven by interests, the world's morals deteriorated day by day. But now that the world has developed to such a stage, this is also the general trend. Therefore, under such circumstances we can't teach them, because teaching them is useless. Shui Leihan said lightly, At such a time, we need the rule of law with an iron fist. The rule of law? Law enforcement officers? Chu Yang's heart trembled. Yes. Shui Leihan said, Law enforcement officers have also changed, and they follow the law enforcement standards from 10,000 years ago. It's no longer suitable for the present. Chu Yang thought and said, Yes, the rule of law should also change accordingly with the changes in the world. In troubled times we need to use strict laws. Shui Leihan said, After troubled times, we can relax a little after a period of rest. But once we get on the right track we need to use strict laws. Chu Yang frowned and pondered. You have deep feelings for this continent. The empire of the lower 3 heavens was built by you. The aristocratic families of the upper 3 heavens were reorganized by you. Now, the order of the upper 3 heavens also needs to be reorganized by you. Shui Leihan said, So, I specially chose this moment to remind you. He smiled warmly. Our cultivation now is very different, but I still treat you as a friend. Friends don't care about cultivation. Chu Yang said lightly, you have this heart, so do I. If you don't, you won't see me today. Shui Leihan said quietly. Heavy snow fell from the sky again. The two of them didn't speak for a long time. However, both of them knew that this round of conversation was already over. The following conversation was the most important one for Chu Yang. Shui Leihan let the snow fall on his face but didn't let it melt. He said, I like snow the most. Chu Yang, I know you have a lot of questions in your heart. He smiled and said, after today I will be returning to my home. So now you can ask what you want to ask. Chu Yang nodded and said, I do have a lot of things to ask you. The first thing is, are the previous generations of tribulations alive or dead? Does the tribulation to nourish the heavens exist? Shui Leihan's expression froze. Hearing that Chu Yang's first question was such a question, he couldn't help but become serious. He pondered for a while and said, the tribulations are not dead. Chu Yang asked, then where are they now? Shui Leihan's expression was complicated. In the extraterrestrial battlefield, preparing for war against the extraterrestrial demons. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh of relief. The emotions of the tribulations moved heaven and earth. If such heroic figures had already died and died tragically, Chu Yang definitely wouldn't feel comfortable at all. Now he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. As for the tribulation to nourish the heavens, it is the last round of selection. All the tribulations and those with distracting thoughts will be eliminated at that stage. Shui Leihan said softly, so the tribulation is not complete. Chu Yang nodded silently. He thought of the Dharma Supreme. He thought of Wu Jueqing. In that case, the tribulation to nourish the heavens is just a joke? In fact, there is no need to tribulation to nourish the heavens? Chu Yang asked somewhat bitterly. Nourishing the heavens is just an excuse. The stability of the continent is a cycle of 10,000 years. All the loose areas will be restored to their original state after 10,000 years, Shui Leihan said lightly. Excuse. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. An excuse. Let all the heroes of the past 10,000 years be included. Bloodshed, bloody disputes. Excuse. Shui Leihan raised his head and looked at the sky. He said lightly, our goal is to protect this part of the starry sky and not let the extraterrestrial demons have their way. Otherwise, not only will the heavenly continent turn into nothingness, but the starry sky with a radius of trillions will also be destroyed. And the heavenly continent is just the most important selection point. Select the most outstanding talents and head to the extraterrestrial to battle the extraterrestrial demons. Chu Yang sighed deeply. For a moment he actually felt that the world was vast and there was a sense of loss as to where to go. This was a huge scam. However, this scam made it so that no one could hate it. Even if there is no such excuse, the martial world is the martial world. The martial world will never stop killing. Shui Leihan said bleakly, so, there is no need to consider this matter. That's right. Chu Yang sighed. But how can I not consider? My brothers and I are all in this tribulation. Shui Leihan smiled. The third question. Since all the previous tribulations are already in the extraterrestrial to prepare for the extraterrestrial demons, where did all the previous masters go? Chu Yang asked. Shui Leihan looked at him quietly and didn't speak for a long time. Chu Yang didn't rush him either. He just looked at him quietly. Other than the first master of the tribulation sword, all the previous masters died. They used their bodies to open the path of reincarnation and open the door to the extraterrestrial world. Their bones were the walls, their flesh paved the way, their blood became the wind and their souls became the sky. They sent my brothers to the extraterrestrial world to fight the extraterrestrial demons. They nurtured my brothers and reconstructed their bodies to become immortal. They fulfilled my brothers' wishes and became immortal in the extraterrestrial world. They let my brothers enjoy the glory of the heavens and the earth and receive the supreme glory. Shui Leihan said solemnly. Chu Yang's heart shook. He lowered his head abruptly and tears flowed out of his eyes. I knew it. How can a heartless person become a master of the tribulation sword? I knew it. There must be something fishy about this. I knew it. There must be a strong reason. I knew it, but I definitely didn't expect it to be such a tragic reason. Then why did every master of the tribulation sword have to hurt their brothers' hearts at the last moment? Chu Yang asked in a low voice. His voice was very weak because he was afraid that he would cry out loud. Such heroes. Such men. To die, to fulfill their brothers' wishes. Going through the path of reincarnation to the extraterrestrial world requires a strong power of resentment to protect one's body. Otherwise, one will be blown into ashes by the strong winds. Shui Leihan took a deep breath. Sadness and resentment are necessary. The more ruthless the better. The more vengeful the heart, the safer it is. The master of the tribulation sword has the ability to break through reincarnation and unseal the extraterrestrial world. However, when the master of the tribulation sword can't meet the final requirements, he will face such a choice. The first choice is to sacrifice his brothers to fulfill his wishes. With the blood, spirit, flesh and soul of this brother as a guide, he will merge them into one. With the strong power of resentment and the soul of the tribulation sword, he will open the path to the extraterrestrial world and send himself over. He will dominate the extraterrestrial world and fight the extraterrestrial demons. The second choice is to sacrifice himself and let this brother pass through the path with resentment towards him forever. He will die and bear the infamy of eternity. He will hate the heavens and his soul will be scattered. Shui Leihan said calmly, I'm very relieved that the 7 masters of the tribulation sword have all chosen to sacrifice themselves. He didn't want to solve this mystery now. However, after thinking about it, he decided to solve it. It seemed that many of his brothers were doubting the character of the master of the tribulation sword. Chapter 1176. Chu Yang's heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. Then, as far as I know, the tribulation sword master is still alive after tribulation nourishes the heavens. And he will only disappear mysteriously after a few months or even longer. What's going on? Chu Yang asked in a low voice. After tribulation entered the passage, he was protected by his resentment, but the passage wasn't stable yet. So, he had to wait for some time until they were all baptized by the astral winds before the blood, flesh and soul of the tribulation sword master could be used. Shui Leihan said, so, after he killed all his brothers, he still had to wait for some time. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. No wonder it was rumored that tribulation nourished the heavens. No wonder every tribulation sword master mysteriously disappeared after tribulation nourished the heavens. No wonder. He himself was the tribulation sword master. And he was the last tribulation sword master. Although he didn't have to make such a choice anymore, he could deeply understand the helplessness of the 7 tribulation sword masters. The pain in their hearts. They had walked side by side with their brothers through thick and thin. But they had to make such a cruel choice at the last moment. The choice wasn't hard to make. They could easily make the choice of sacrificing themselves for their brothers. Even if they had to bear the infamy, they would still be happy. But the biggest problem was to destroy their brothers' bodies and lives with their own hands. Although they knew that they would be reborn over there and that they would be rewarded for their sacrifice, they didn't see it with their own eyes. But after all, they were the ones who tore apart the bodies of their brothers who had gone through thick and thin with them. And the cruelest thing was that every tribulation sword master had to live for some time after killing their brothers before they would shatter themselves. Then, how would they survive this period of time? How would they survive? Their hearts would probably be full of holes, right? But they still had to hold on until those brothers who hated them needed them. Only then would they give their all. Rest in peace. Who could understand the pain in their hearts? Chu Yang thought of himself. If one day he had to kill Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, Mo Tianji and the others with the cruelest methods, how would he feel? If he had to hold on for some time after killing his brothers? Chu Yang suddenly shuddered. The first tribulation sword master didn't do that, so you suppressed him in the lake of death? Chu Yang suppressed the emotions in his heart and asked lightly. Yes. That's also a test for the tribulation sword master. Shui Leihan didn't hide anything and admitted it directly. How many people passed the test? Chu Yang closed his eyes. Tears welled up in his eyes. 3 passed. 4 chose the path of heartlessness. Shui Leihan sighed and said, although they initially chose the path of heartlessness at the final juncture, they chose the path of sentiment. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, how can a person's heart and human nature be distinguished by a mere Tao of emotions and ruthlessness? Can it be erased? Yes, Shui Leihan admitted. In the end, the Calamity Sword Masters who chose the heartless Tao all regretted it. Shui Leihan said calmly, they regretted that they chose the heartless Tao back at the Lake of Despair. If you choose the path of sentiment, then in the long years to come, you can still enjoy a lot of happy times with your brothers. If it were me, I would also regret it, Chu Yang said quietly. He suddenly thought of Wu Jueqing. Wu Jueqing had always been brooding over this matter. It had been tens of thousands of years. If he knew the truth, it turned out to be like this. Chu Yang dared to guarantee that once Wu Jueqing knew the truth, his first choice would be to wipe his neck out of shame. Chu Yang sighed inwardly. Looks like it's better to bury this matter in the bottom of my heart. I want to know the names of the past Calamity Sword Masters. Chu Yang exhaled deeply and gently. But it shocked him so much that he felt dizzy and trembling. The first Calamity Sword Master was called Lei Jian. The second Calamity Sword Master was called Storm Shui Leihan. He spoke of every name with great familiarity. All these years I've often thought of these names. Although I've never befriended any of them, they are indeed good men. Of course, except for the first one. The third Calamity Sword Master was called Meng Tsang. The fourth Calamity Sword Master was called Duan Tian. The fifth Calamity Sword Master was called Yun Dong. The sixth Calamity Sword Master was called Qin Fong. The seventh Calamity Sword Master was called Lin Zun. The eighth Calamity Sword Master was called Jun Lai. Shui Leihan spoke of the names of these 8 people with great familiarity. He looked at Chu Yang and said in a low voice, "The first Calamity Sword Master was called Chu Yang." Chu Yang took a deep breath and murmured, "Lei Jian, Storm, Meng Tsang, Duan Tian, Yun Dong, Qin Fong, Lin Zun, Jun Lai. Good men. Good heroes. Good." Shui Leihan also sighed. "I have to say that there are countless good men in this world. Perhaps in the eyes of many people, these people are very silly. But it's precisely these silly people who can create immortal legends. They have become the spiritual pillars of the entire human world since ancient times. And those so-called smart people have long disappeared in the long river of history. Not even their names were left behind. In this world, silly people are cute," Chu Yang said in a low voice. "Yes." Shui Leihan sighed and said, "Did you notice that the names of the Calamity Sword Masters are all 2 words? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "Of course I noticed that." Shui Leihan said, "But there's one thing you didn't notice. And I only realized it after you obtained the Calamity Sword in your previous life. I deeply felt the horror of heaven's will." Chu Yang frowned. "This is strange. Is it because of the names?" Shui Leihan smiled lightly and said, "Pay attention to the last word of each of your names from the first Calamity Sword Master down to you. See if you notice anything." Chu Yang murmured, "The first Lei Jian is sword, the second Storm is bow, the third Meng Tsang is tsang, the fourth Duan Tian is tian." Suddenly he was shocked and said, "These 4 are sword exploding the heavens. Then, including me, the last 5. As he continued to calculate, he was suddenly startled and stood there dumbstruck. Like a wooden sculpture. Behind them Yun Dong, Qin Fong, Lin Zun, Jun Lai. Plus himself, it was Dongfang Zun Lai Yang. And all together it was one word, one sentence. Sword Bao Tsang Tian Dong Fong Zun Lai Yang. Sword exploding the heavens Dongfang Zun Lai Yang. Chu Yang murmured as if he was dreaming. What does this mean? Sword exploding the heavens Dongfang Zun Lai Yang? Or sword exploding the east of the heavens Fang Zun Lai Yang? Or sword exploding the east of the heavens, Lai Yang? Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. Don't ask me, I don't know either. This mystery can only be solved by you in the future. However, this is a complete sentence and there's no need to doubt what it means. Nonsense. Chu Yang scolded without holding back. Of course there's a meaning. If there's no meaning, why did you come up with this? Shui Leihan touched his nose and could only smile bitterly. How many tens of thousands of years had it been since someone dared to scold him? How fresh. Now, there was actually someone pointing at the head of the Celestial Emperor and scolding him, spittle all over his face. And he couldn't even lose his temper. If the other guys in the Celestial Palace knew about this, they would probably lose all their old teeth that had existed for tens of thousands of years. There's nothing you don't understand, right? Shui Leihan snorted. Yes. Chu Yang hurriedly said, I want to ask, who exactly is the Dharma Supreme? Just ask this question directly? Shui Leihan stared at him with interest. Do you want me to tell you where the rest of the sword fragments are? Or should I just take them all out and give them to you? Chu Yang touched his nose. Cough, actually, I don't care. I don't care if you don't tell me. Of course, if you tell me all of them, I don't care even more. If you just give them all to me. I can only accept them and feel guilty. Get lost. Shui Leihan scolded jokingly. Where did you learn to be so thick-skinned? You weren't like this in your previous life. Chu Yang smiled embarrassedly. Aren't I more handsome in this life than in my previous life? Shui Leihan stood up speechlessly. If you don't have anything else to ask, I'm leaving. I'll be waiting for you at the Celestial Palace. Wait. Chu Yang hurriedly stopped him. Didn't you say that after the heaven and earth were sealed, the owner of the Tribulation Sword once again had the privilege of entering and exiting the Celestial Palace freely? Why don't I have it? Shui Leihan snorted and said, when you find the 5th sword fragment, you'll have one chance to enter and exit freely. You have 3 months to come back. This is the only privilege. The rest will have to wait until the sixth sword fragment is unsealed. I see. Chu Yang was relieved. He looked at the wind thunder platform thousands of miles away and felt an unbearable itch in his heart. He was about to get it. Didn't that mean that he could go down? Thinking of Gu Duxing, Mo Tianji, Ao Shiyun and the rest, Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. Thinking of Tai Bu Quan. Chu Yang's heart was complicated again. Thinking of those whom he had yet to meet, Chu Yang thought of the situation when he became sworn brothers with his father Chu failing. Damn it, he had to do anything. Otherwise, after 10 or 20 years, he would also become sworn brothers with his son. That would be really embarrassing. There's nothing else now, right? Xue Leihan was a little helpless. Of course there's something. Chu Yang said eloquently, this is quite tasty. Leave it for me. Tell me how to dilute the tea. You want it? You actually still want the original pulp? Undiluted wine paste? Xue Leihan looked at the thick-skinned person in front of him with some genuine shock. Yes. Chu Yang said righteously, you also said that we're friends. Friends share wealth, let alone a few cups of wine. Why are you so stingy? Are you giving it to me or not? If not, I'm going to snatch it. As he spoke, he started to brag. He glared and rolled up his sleeves. From the looks of it, he was really going to snatch it. Chapter 1177. Just a few cups of wine? Xue Leihan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Do you know that you drank a total of 10 cups of my wine just now, which has already increased your cultivation by 300 years? Now you actually want the wine cream? Aren't you afraid of exploding? I'm not afraid. Chu Yang said boldly, at most I'll be a good man again after 18 years. Xue Leihan was speechless. Brother, you don't know what we're drinking now is just a very small jar of wine cream, less than half a kilogram, but I diluted it with 50 kilograms of water. And 10 cups have increased your cultivation by 300 years. Chu Yang's eyes lit up. I see. Then give me 8 or 10 more jars. Xue Leihan said angrily, not even one. Chu Yang persisted. 5 jars will do. Not even a drop. Xue Leihan was very firm. At least 2 jars. Chu Yang said angrily, I want this number. If it's less, I don't want it either. At most 1 jar. Xue Leihan said, take it or leave it. If you don't want it, forget it. Deal. Chu Yang quickly clapped his hands. 1 jar it is. Give it to me. Xue Leihan's eyes widened. He threw out a jar in annoyance and said, you've become really shameless now. Chu Yang hurriedly caught it and kept it in the tribulation space at once. He smiled. If I wanted to be shameless, this jar of wine would be gone. This is a good wine that can increase one's cultivation by several decades with just 1 cup. As he spoke, he said, what other good things do you have? Anyway, you're going back now, and I still have a long time before I can go up to find you. After I go up, I can't say whether I can find you or not. Might as well leave some behind. Even though Xue Leihan had lived for 1,000,000 years, he couldn't help but feel dumbfounded by this person's shamelessness. He shook his head vigorously. No more. Chu Yang didn't give up. He pulled at his sleeve forcefully. With a hiss, a sleeve fell off. What are you doing? Xue Leihan said angrily. I thought you were wearing invulnerable clothes. So you're not, Chu Yang said disappointedly. So this guy was thinking about his clothes? He wanted to strip him naked? The more Xue Leihan thought about it, the more he felt that he shouldn't stay here any longer. Facing such a person who was impervious to persuasion, thick-skinned and black-hearted, Xue Leihan felt more and more helpless. He said dejectedly, you're ruthless. Chu Yang still didn't give up. Why don't you put me in your storage ring? I'll go and choose by myself. Xue Leihan, is this guy Xue Leihan to leave? Xue to leave 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 to be seen. Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Then he deftly put the ice jade platform, table, chairs and wine pot into the tribulation space. Then he muttered, so stingy. With a flash, Xue Leihan appeared again. He of that, to be left to be left. Shoot, to be used leaved, to, teat? Zafi teat? You even look like an almighty? What do you know? Xue Leihan said angrily, that's the fire and water jade in the heaven and earth pot. Chu Yang's eyes lit up and he asked humbly, please enlighten me, what are the fire and water jade in the heaven and earth pot? Xue Leihan shook his head and sighed. He stretched out a hand and pointed a finger at the tip of Chu Yang's nose from afar. He tapped twice, then nodded fiercely. Good. You're so good. Good. Chu Yang said innocently, do you have to praise me like that? before he finished, Xue Leihan had already disappeared. Then there was a clap of thunder above the clouds. A golden light flashed faintly thousands of miles away and then disappeared. Xue Leihan had finally left for good. He really didn't want to stay in this world for even a moment longer. If he stayed any longer, even his underwear would have been extorted by this bastard. I'm also a celestial emperor. How can I go back naked? I've made a fortune, Chu Yang muttered to himself, overjoyed. I should have gone back long ago, damn it. You're always uncomfortable here. Who asked you to be so much stronger than me? As he spoke, he took out a wine pot and played with it. Heaven and earth pot? How much can it hold? Let me take a look inside. He used his divine sense to take a look and was instantly overjoyed. There was a dark hole inside, but at the very bottom there was wine. It only took up a small part of the bottom. According to Xue Leihan, that was the smallest jar of wine ointment, using 50 kilograms of water. Xue Leihan drank 3 to 4 cups and he drank 10 cups. In total, it was only 20 cups of wine, at most 4 to 5 kilograms. That meant there were still 50 kilograms in this pot? Only such a small part of the bottom of the pot? If it was completely filled, wouldn't it be more than 10,000 kilograms? I'm rich. Chu Yang grinned. I love taking advantage of people the most. As he spoke, he took out the water-fire jade that Xue Leihan mentioned and played with it in front of him. With a crack, he broke a piece and felt a strong spiritual energy suddenly spurt out. For a moment he actually felt suffocated. Amazing. Chu Yang hurriedly threw the rest of the water-fire jade into the tribulation space and immediately sat down to circulate his divine technique, absorbing this spiritual energy into his dantian. He felt his cultivation rising rapidly. This wave of spiritual energy was gentle, but it actually carried a berserk spiritual energy with 2 completely different attributes flowing through his meridians. Chu Yang felt as if he was enjoying both ice and fire at any time and place. On one hand he felt so comfortable that he wanted to moan, but on the other hand he felt so uncomfortable that he wanted to roll around. This feeling was really hard to describe. Moreover, as the spiritual energy was activated by the heaven-splitting divine technique, the water-fire jade in his hand also slowly lost its color. From crystal clear it slowly became a little gray. Then, the broken piece of water-fire jade gradually became smaller, and eventually turned into a pile of powder. Chu Yang was shocked to find that his cultivation had risen from the initial level of Sword Saint level to the peak level of Sword Saint level in one go. He was only a step away from breaking through to first-grade Supreme Martial Artist. Chu Yang stood up, somewhat emotional. From the Emperor level to the Monarch level, one could basically skip a few levels. With this power now, it was enough for him to directly rise from first-grade Emperor level to second-grade Martial Saint level. But now, the 300 years of cultivation brought by the wine, coupled with the huge power of this small piece of water-fire jade, only then did he rise from the beginner level of Martial Saint level to the peak level of Martial Saint level. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to raise one's cultivation level after becoming a supreme being. No wonder all the supreme martial artists were so old. Their powerful cultivation was the accumulation of countless years of experience. Thinking of this, Chu Yang's heart moved. He remembered that day when he rescued Han Xiaoran, that last blow. Chu Yang had already risked his life for that blow. Even the chances of winning were very small, and the chances of survival were definitely not high. But at that moment, the heaven-splitting divine technique suddenly moved on its own. It was just that one move, but it suddenly doubled the power of his sword technique. If the heaven-splitting divine technique was fully activated, what kind of scene would it be? Chu Yang thought to himself. Without any hesitation he began to explore. He remembered that the power of the heaven-splitting divine technique in his previous life was also greater than in this life. Why did the heaven-splitting divine technique become a cliché when he had completely reversed his fate? It only had ordinary power? This shouldn't be at all. There must be a mysterious reason that caused him to not discover the magical power of the heaven-splitting divine technique. And now Chu Yang was trying to open this treasure vault. Snow was falling above his head. On the snowy ground, Chu Yang was working hard. At this moment, with a sudden snap, a piece of ice fell from the sky and hit right on his head. Chu Yang was startled. He reached out and grabbed the ice in his hand. It wasn't strange for it to snow, rain or hail, but now it was actually ice. Taking a look at it in his hand, he saw that the ice cracked open, revealing a pale gold piece of paper inside. Chu Yang's heart moved. He opened the paper and saw a few words written on it. It was Xue Leihan's handwriting. This guy actually sent a letter directly from the heaven-splitting imperial court. He was unwilling to come down and face Chu Yang personally after spending a lot of effort. Life is the path of heartlessness, but it needs true feelings to comfort loneliness. Don't say that the heart of loyalty has been destroyed, there are geniuses outside the realm. Chuyang first smiled, then he fell into deep thought. Nothing in life could surpass birth, old age, sickness and death. This was the path of reincarnation and also the beginning of heartlessness. Whether old age, sickness or death, it was all heartlessness. No matter how unwilling he was, this day would come. But in this heartless land, it needed to be accompanied by true feelings. Just like the previous tribulation sword masters. The passage that tribulations passed through at the end was a path of heartlessness. But it needed the tribulation sword master to open and escort it with great true feelings and all his true feelings. Chuyang knew that the most important part of Xue Leihan's poem was actually the first 2 lines. The last 2 lines were purely Xue Leihan's habit of playing with ink. He just added 2 more lines to complete the poem. In the past, I've always been obsessed with the path of emotions and the path of heartlessness. Chuyang smiled lightly. Actually, it's my own fault. Or rather, everyone in the world is wrong. The path of heartlessness is the path, and the people of emotions are the people. In fact, this is completely unrelated. The path of heartlessness is the path, and the people of emotions are the people of the world. The path of heartlessness is the way of the world, and the people of the world have emotions. Chuyang shook his head and smiled. The misconception of the people of the world is that they consider people and the path together. Actually, there is no path in the world, and the people of the world have emotions. That's how it is. After thinking through this point, Chuyang only felt that his whole body was relaxed. Although this realization couldn't bring him any substantial benefits now, the invisible benefits could accompany him for every step of his life. The layered heaven divine technique in his body seemed to be active, slowly wriggling and operating. Chuyang's heart moved and he hurriedly activated it. The cultivation in his body surged like a great river. But Chuyang realized that the fundamental energy of the layered heaven divine technique was still dormant in his dantian, wriggling slowly. It wasn't active. And a trace of hazy purple gas was moving slowly in his dantian. Only when this trace of purple gas moved would the layered heaven divine technique move with it. Chapter 1178. Where did this purple gas come from? Chuyang was a little confused. Logically speaking, he was absorbing the primordial purple vapor in the tribulation space every day. His meridians were sometimes purple and he felt much more powerful. But the dantian ocean of qi had never appeared before. Now it finally appeared and it was only a little bit. It was so weak that it was undetectable. Sword Spirit, are you here? Chuyang asked. Since Xue Leihan appeared, the Sword Spirit suddenly fell silent for some reason. I'm here. The Sword Spirit asked respectfully, has Master left? He left long ago. Chuyang snorted, still a little angry at someone's pettiness. The Sword Spirit relaxed and said, what did you say just now? Suddenly he exclaimed, Isn't this Master's heaven-grade wine? Could this be Master's water-fire jade? Why did Master give you so much? Chuyang said smugly, I want it, how can he not give it to me? The Sword Spirit sucked in cold air. As far as I know, the water-fire jade may have been given to others before, but no one has ever drunk heaven-grade wine. Sis and the Qinghuan pot. What Qinghuan pot? Chuyang snorted. It's just a large wine pot. That's because my cultivation is not high enough. The Sword Spirit looked at Chuyang as if he were a city dweller looking at a country bumpkin. The Qinghuan pot can hold an entire continent, but it's just a large wine pot in your eyes. So it's a matter of cultivation. Chuyang said awkwardly, I thought it was just a large wine pot. With Master's magical powers, why would he carry a wine pot with him? The Sword Spirit said discontentedly. Chuyang exploded. Are you done? What Master? Do you know that we're together now? We have nothing to do with him in the future, do you know? Is there a need to be so scared? One day I'll kill my way to the heavenly imperial court and catch this guy and spank him every day. The Sword Spirit shut up tactfully, but his eyes were still full of disbelief. Chuyang snorted and said, Purple gas threads have appeared in the dantian of the heavenly divine technique. What's going on? The Sword Spirit was shocked and immediately dived in to check. After a long time. Then he exclaimed in shock, Lord Sword Master, the layered heaven divine technique, has been activated for the first time in 10,000 years. The Sword Spirit's voice was somewhat incoherent. The layered heaven divine technique is being activated for the first time in 10,000 years? Chuyang was puzzled. Could it be that the previous masters of the tribulation sword didn't activate it? This is the layered heaven divine technique? Absolutely not. The Sword Spirit's expression was absolutely solemn. Then why can I clearly feel that the heaven-splitting divine technique in my previous life is much more powerful than it is now? Chu Yang felt a headache coming. In my previous life, it was because my heart was filled with hatred and resentment. It was the heart of destruction. The influence of violent spiritual energy. It only slightly stimulated the heaven-splitting divine technique, the sword spirit said. I see. Chu Yang asked, what do I need to do if I want to fully activate the heaven-splitting divine technique? The sword spirit smiled wryly. 1,000,000 strands of primordial violet vapor can allow you to condense a strand of primordial real silk. When the amount of primordial real silk in your dantian reaches 1,000,000 strands, the heaven-splitting divine technique can be fully activated. When the primordial real silk becomes a strand, you can break through the limits of the heaven-splitting divine technique. If it completely becomes the primordial aura ocean, you can change the world. Ah, Chu Yang's eyes turned. The primordial violet vapor in the tribulation space now. How much life force origin is there? How many strands of primordial real silk can it form? How many strands? The sword spirit rolled his eyes. Not to mention that the primordial violet vapor here is enough for you to absorb for a few years before your cultivation reaches a certain level. Even if you absorb all of it, it's more or less enough to form a strand of primordial real silk. Chu Yang sat down on the ground. What? Not a lot of strands? The sword spirit said somewhat speechlessly, this is the heavenly continent, not the heavenly imperial court. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any strands at all. Chu Yang looked at the sky speechlessly, feeling that his brain wasn't enough. He looked at the primordial violet vapor in the tribulation space that was almost condensed into substance. But if he wanted to turn it into primordial real silk, only strands? And at most? Primordial real silk is something that can create heaven and earth. The sword spirit looked left and right a little sneakily. Lowering his voice, he said, you don't have to be discouraged. You must know that even Master has probably only reached the stage of forming strands of primordial real silk. And there shouldn't be more than 100 strands. 100 strands? How many strands is that? Chu Yang asked carefully. He was afraid that he would ask another number that would make his heart stop beating. One strand should be able to form one strand with 100,000 strands. 100 strands. It should be more than 50 million strands. The sword spirit pondered and said, this number is somewhat conservative. After all, I'm just guessing. The real number should be more than... Chu Yang held his forehead with one hand and groaned. Brother, this conservative number of yours. It's already made my heart stop beating for a while. Chu Yang looked somewhat speechlessly at the primordial violet vapor in the tribulation space and then calculated the number of strands. Multiplied by 100,000, to form one strand. 100 strands, more than 50 million strands? What a terrifying number this is. His consciousness sank into his dantian. Looking at the pitiful strand of primordial real silk in his dantian, Chu Yang truly felt the gap between himself and Xue Leihan. He had never thought that the difference in cultivation between the two could be compared with such a specific number. However, the cruel thing was that this comparison was a direct blow to Chu Yang. In other words, even with the most conservative estimate, Xue Leihan's current cultivation was at least 50 million times higher than his. 50 million times. The moment he thought of this number, Chu Yang suddenly wanted to die. This fellow had said that he had to surpass him in 10,000 years to have any hope of truly defeating the extraterrestrial demons. Chu Yang wanted to die. At this moment, he had an incomparably rude impulse to curse. Curse Xue Leihan's mother. Wasn't this a fucking trap? No. There was no such thing as a trap. Then how many strands can form the primordial ocean of aura? Chu Yang asked in despair. The sword spirit calculated seriously and said, according to a conservative estimate, 100,000 strands should be enough to form the initial stage? The sword spirit smiled very embarrassedly. I really don't know about this. I know. Chu Yang waved his hands weakly, his eyes lifeless. How many strands were 100,000 strands? 100 strands would be 50 million strands. According to this ratio, it would require 50 billion strands of primordial real silk. And if there were no accidents, this should be far from enough. 100,000 strands could form one strand, but 100 strands would require 50 million strands. Chu Yang estimated that to form the primordial ocean of aura, the number of primordial real silk would probably need to be calculated in the trillions and above. Sword Spirit, why don't we break up? Chu Yang said dejectedly, look, this matter is very clear. The Chu clan in the southeast is very safe now. I'll work hard and find the tribulation sword fragment, then open the passage and bring our brothers up to enjoy life. Bring my old woman up too and live in seclusion in the southeast. As he spoke weakly, he suddenly grabbed his own hair with both hands. He let out a heart-wrenching roar. At least 1 trillion. God, how am I going to spend my days? Then he sat down on the ground, feeling as if his heart had also broken into 8 pieces along with his butt. The sword spirit was also very speechless. If that's the case, this Shui Leihan came up with such a heaven-crossing divine technique here purely to set me up. Chu Yang was dejected for a while before he suddenly gnashed his teeth with murderous intent. I don't think so. The sword spirit hesitated for a moment before he said, as far as I know, Master hasn't created such a powerful technique yet. A powerful technique? Chu Yang laughed bitterly. This is a goddamn technique to set people up. Trillion. Just thinking about it makes my head explode. The sword spirit said solemnly, the wonderful thing about this technique is that, if you don't gather enough primordial real silk, it can still exert its power in the form of an ordinary cultivation. But once you gather enough, you can immediately be reborn. Since ancient times, no one has ever heard of such a technique. And the most wonderful thing is that he even digitized the technique. This allows you to know where your gap is at all times. And there's no ultimate goal. The sword spirit said, therefore, this technique should have been created by the 2 mighty people who could sweep through the heavens with just the aftershocks of that battle. Chu Yang perked up. You mean? If I'm not wrong, this technique should be the most powerful technique in the world. The sword spirit said, there's no other technique that can compare to it. Chu Yang laughed mischievously, if that's the case. Saying that, I'm somewhat comforted. It's just that to gather enough primordial real silk, where would I find so much primordial violet vapor? The sword spirit said solemnly, since ancient times there's a saying that the heavens have its limits. It can't be seen in this heavenly continent, but in some dangerous places sealed in the heavenly palace, as long as one passes through them, one can touch the heavens' limits. The heavens' limits are primordial real silk. As far as the eye can see, it's all primordial violet vapor. It's all life force origin. Chu Yang's eyes had just lit up when the sword spirit said somewhat embarrassedly, but I've only heard of it. I haven't seen it with my own eyes. Chu Yang's eyes dimmed again. Fuck. You might as well not have said it. The sword spirit blinked and asked, what do we do now? Chu Yang took a deep breath. Then he let out another breath. Then he took another deep breath. His lungs suddenly bulged. His guts seemed to have expanded at this moment. Then he said fiercely, what else can we do? Do it. Do it? Asked the sword spirit doubtfully. Yes, just do it. Chu Yang exposed an evil grin as he gnashed his teeth. Then he raised his head and roared in a loud voice, old fuck. Yesterday the computer suddenly stopped working. It was already night time and I was so anxious. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I hurriedly got out of bed and took a taxi to the computer repair shop. After a long time of banging and banging on the door, I hurriedly repaired it and brought it back. It turned out that I had locked the keyboard somewhere. Computer noobs can't afford to get hurt. Yesterday I just said that I would explode, but now I had to ask for leave. My heart was burning with anxiety. Perhaps no one cares about my character and credibility, but I care about it. I care about it to the point of dying. I hurriedly wrote a chapter and took a break. I'll update the rest in the afternoon. There should be no less than 5 chapters today. Sorry everyone, please forgive me. Chapter 1179. Chu Yang stood quietly at the foot of the mountain. The boundless snow covered the entire sky. It was as if he was the only one left in this vast world. He stood at the top of the mountain and looked at the mountain opposite him. He had been standing here for a night. He stood there motionlessly and no one knew what he was thinking. Opposite him was the Wind Thunder platform. The 5th fragment of the Calamity Sword was here. Chu Yang's previous life was also here. Here with my blood I destroyed all calamities, turning back time and starting everything from the beginning. However, this was also his most painful dream. Here he encountered the most painful betrayal of his life. His lifelong friend Mo Tianji ambushed him here for his sister. That trap was flawless to him. That was the first time Chu Yang personally experienced the power of Mo Tianji's master of calculation and manipulation, and it was also the last time. It was only after his rebirth that Chu Yang truly understood why Mo Tianji wanted to kill him. It was for his sister Mo Qingwu. Qingwu. Chu Yang stood in this sky full of snow. It was as if he saw the Qingwu of his previous life. Dressed in red, she danced gracefully in the heavy snow that connected the sky to the earth. Her eyes were bleak and her face was bleak. Chu Yang, in this life I will only dance for you. That was the first time Qingwu danced for him. One dance intoxicated him. In this life I will dance for you. In this life I will dance for you. My heart will not change even if I die 1,000 times. I will not dance lightly in my life. One dance will be bitter for a lifetime. So my name is Mo Qingwu. I will not dance lightly, but once I dance it will be for a lifetime. Chuyang, if there is a next life, if I can meet you in the next life, I hope you will take a good look at me. I am prettier than a sword. Chuyang stood there in a daze. Yes, I am prettier than a sword. What sword can be prettier than yours? Even the Calamity sword. Can't compare. Chuyang murmured. Chuyang had a feeling in his heart. The Qingwu of his previous life would return sooner or later. Or rather, the current Mo Qingwu would sooner or later awaken the memories of her previous life. Ever since Mo Qingwu had that strange dream, Chuyang had always had that feeling. He was looking forward to Mo Qingwu's return. Because he had too many things that he couldn't tell anyone else, not even the current Mo Qingwu. Only the Qingwu of my previous life can understand me and understand me. Only then would he truly understand why he had struggled and fought for his entire life. Only Qingwu from his previous life could forgive him. Only Qingwu in his previous life had truly said to him, I forgive you. Only then could Chuyang put down the big stone in his chest and untie the last knot in his heart. In this life, Qingwu was charming and lovely. She was very obedient to him and had a deep-rooted affection for him. Sometimes Chuyang would also think, I have already made up for my previous life. But every time he faced his own heart, he would know that he didn't. There was no compensation. The one who had hurt him was Qingwu from his previous life. In this life, even if he were to compensate Qingwu 10,000-fold, the injury from his previous life would still exist. It could not be erased. This knot could only be untied by Chuyang and Qingwu of the previous life. But Chuyang was also afraid of Mo Qingwu's return. This was because he knew that he was no longer complete. He was no longer the Chuyang of his previous life. Although his current life was bitter, it was still a bitter one. Although it was painful. Although he had been struggling, it was undeniable. In this life he had achieved success at a young age and everything had been smooth sailing. All the way until now, he had reached the peak of Sword Saint level before the age of 20. Although this achievement was still insignificant compared to the Almighty, it was already the first in the history of this heavenly continent. He had been working hard to control himself. But he had become famous at a young age and had brilliant achievements all this time. Did he really not feel proud at all? That was really a lie. And emotionally he was also in a mess now. At the very least, Wu Qianxian was still lying in the tribulation space. Logically, morally he could not abandon her. Moreover, in his heart he had never thought of abandoning her. He was reluctant to abandon her. In the lower three heavens, there was still a female emperor who saved him with her innocence. She silently gave birth to his child and silently raised his child. If he let her down, was he still human? Whether it was Wu Qianxian or Tai Budian, they had never thought of using their love to tie him down. They had also never thought of using the so-called conscience and responsibility to restrict him. They were all silently contributing. They had never even asked for anything in return. But once Chuyang knew about these things, he had to face them. As a man, there were some responsibilities that he had to bear even if he died. Moreover, there was still Zi Sheqing. Chuyang smiled bitterly. Zi Sheqing had never had any emotional entanglements with him. When he was with her, he was always abused. It seemed that she had never turned over a new leaf. But he enjoyed that feeling very much. Well, of course, it was not the feeling of being beaten up. He did not have the hobby of being abused. But when he was with her, he inexplicably felt that he had someone to rely on and was very safe. This was a psychological reason. It was not because he was weak. Chuyang believed that even if one day his cultivation surpassed Zi Sheqing's, this feeling would still not change. This was probably a psychological dependence of a man towards a woman's maternal instincts. Chuyang could not explain it clearly. But when did this feeling become a concern and an even more inexplicable feeling between a man and a woman? Chuyang did not know. He believed that Zi Sheqing was also confused. Although she did not say it clearly and did not make any promises. But before Zi Sheqing left, she had said, if we meet again in the clouds, please sweep away the fallen flowers in Jiangnan. This had already clearly expressed her feelings. If they meet again. Zi Sheqing's future meeting was just like these three words: hope and disbelief. Chuyang's heart was in a mess. If Mo Qingwu from his previous life really returned now, how should he tell her? Qingwu, I let you down in my previous life. I want to make it up to you in this life. But not only do I love you in this life, I also fell in love with someone else? How shameless was this sentence? Now that Chuyang thought about it, he felt that his shamelessness was the most heinous crime. Although it was normal to have multiple wives and concubines now, the whole continent accepted this view. Even Wu Qianqian, Tai Budian and Mo Qinggu also approved of this. But Chuyang himself still felt uncomfortable in his heart. After all, although he let Qinggu down in his previous life, but from the beginning to the end, they only had each other in their hearts. In this life he had created such a situation that he could not give up. This might be a happy ending for others, but for Mo Qinggu, it was absolutely unfair. If Qinggu from his previous life returned, she only needed to say one sentence to make him completely ashamed. Chuyang, you said that you let me down in your previous life and wanted to make it up to me in this life. So this is how you cut your heart into pieces and gave me a piece of it to make it up to me? Although with Qingwu's character in his previous life and her temper in this life, she would never say this sentence, but even if Qinggu did not say it, could he not think? Chuyang, you said that you want to make up for the regrets of your previous life and make it up to your lover in this life, but is this how you make it up to me? Chuyang sighed sadly. Could a person's heart really love several people wholeheartedly at the same time? He desperately wanted to go to the Wind Thunder platform, but when he really got close to it, he stood there in a daze for the whole night. He didn't even know what he was thinking about that night. In short, his heart was a mess. He did not know how to sort it out. The sword spirit turned into an illusory shadow and appeared in the vast snow to accompany Chuyang. For a long time he did not disturb him. He knew how Chuyang felt. At this moment, any consolation was so pale. A place of life and death, a place of life and death. How could he not be emotional? After a long time, Chuyang exhaled a long breath and realized his entire lower body. It was buried in the snow. He looked down and murmured, "This snow is really heavy. It's really heavy. I wonder if Qingwu's heart will be cold?" The sword spirit said silently, "Even if it is cold, it can also be warm." Chuyang nodded and exhaled softly. "I hope that I can warm it for her." He nodded and suppressed this thought in the bottom of his heart. He said, "Let's go. Let's go to the Wind Thunder platform." The sword spirit let out an inexplicable laugh. Then he floated behind Chuyang. Two figures floated up from the cliff and flew towards the opposite mountain. Between the clouds, the Wind Thunder platform, the one-line sky. Northwest of the heavens, the most dangerous place. One could enter and exit the one-line sky. Chuyang finally arrived at the Wind Thunder mountain. Legend had it that this was the place where the Wind God and the Thunder God fought. It was said that the two gods fought for several months and there was no clear winner. In the end, the two of them shook hands and made peace, but the whole mountain was broken into two halves. Between them, there was a cliff that was 100 feet wide and a few hundred feet long. Both sides were straight to the bottom. This cliff was the most amazing sight in the northwest of the heavens, the one-line sky. If one looked up from the bottom of the cliff, one could only see the one-line sky when the sky was clear. If there were any obstructions, one would not see it. However, for tens of thousands of years, not even a blade of grass grew on these two straight cliffs. On this side of the cliff, the wind was howling. On the other side of the cliff, there was thunder all day long. In the middle of the cliff, there was a straight stone pillar that rose straight from the bottom. It was 10,000 feet high but only 30 feet thick. From top to bottom it was round. This was something that should not have happened. With such a distance and length, not to mention stone, even if it was made of star iron, it would probably be blown down by a gentle breeze. However, this stone pillar stood here without moving for hundreds of thousands of years. At the top of the stone pillar, a piece of stone stretched out from each side, tightly connecting the two sides of the cliff. On this one-line sky cliff, a stone platform was set up out of thin air. It had a radius of several hundred feet. It was as if two giants were confronting each other and about to fight. However, a very thin and small person stood between them and stretched out two hands to separate them. This stone platform divided the two cliffs equally. However, it also caused the wind to howl on one side, while on the other side, there was no wind at all. There was only the faint sound of thunder and flashes of lightning. This was the origin of the Wind Thunder platform. Chapter 1180. Chuyang stood at the edge of the cliff and looked at the familiar Wind Thunder platform. He shook his head and smiled emotionally. Everything has changed in my previous life. Only this Wind Thunder platform remains the same. Star 51. At this moment it was freezing cold. Whether it was the cliff or the Wind Thunder platform, they were all covered in snow. If it was an ordinary person, the slightest slip would cause them to die without a burial ground. Chuyang looked at the surroundings with some nostalgia and said, "Back then Mo Tianji was watching from there. And the ambushers were here, here and here, at the same place." In my previous life, if I panicked and didn't know where to go, I would go east. That's where I was. After I rushed there, I encountered the first wave of ambushers. Then I changed my direction and encountered the second wave of ambushers. I changed my direction continuously and was attacked head-on. So, I retreated back to the Wind Thunder platform. Then I realized that other than the few places I rushed to, there were no ambushers at all. Chu Yang smiled lightly. It can be seen how accurate Mo Tianji's understanding of my character was. It must have been hard on him. At that time, not only did he have to calculate every step I took, he also had to find so many people to die with me based on my cultivation. Chu Yang shook his head and smiled bitterly. The sword spirit looked at this place and couldn't help but exclaim, "It's indeed impressive." This place seemed to be a dangerous place. But as long as one's lightness skills reached a certain level, one could jump to the top of the cliff. Moreover, the cliff was hundreds of feet high. One could choose any place to land. If one were to say that trapping a person to death in such a place, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. But Mo Tianji actually managed to force Chu Yang, who had already rushed out, back to the Wind Thunder platform without wasting any manpower. This kind of calculation, this kind of confidence, this kind of scheming, it was simply terrifying. Looking at the dangerous terrain in front of him, Chu Yang raised his head and opened his mouth to catch the snowflakes in the sky. He asked, "Sword Spirit, do you feel anything?" After all, this was information from his previous life. In his previous life, he only confirmed this place after much research. But whether it was there or not, he didn't have time to verify it. "Yes, it's here," the sword spirit said excitedly. "I can already feel the aura of the sword tongue." "Sword tongue?" Chu Yang asked. "The fifth fragment of the sword is actually a sword tongue." "Yes." The sword spirit pointed and said, "Look at these two cliffs. Facing each other, does it not look like a person opening his mouth? Between the stone pillars, does the Wind Thunder platform look like a person's tongue?" Chu Yang frowned and sized it up for a long while. Then he nodded in a far-fetched manner. "Indeed, it's very similar." He thought to himself, "Damn it. If it weren't for their preconceived notions, who would have thought that this cliff actually looked like a human mouth? How old must he be to have such a big mouth?" Thinking about it this way, Chu Yang couldn't help but smile strangely. The sword spirit was puzzled. "What are you laughing at?" Chu Yang said seriously, "I'm thinking if this is really a person's mouth, then how big is this person's body?" The sword spirit pondered for a moment and said, "It should be similar to this mountain." Chu Yang said solemnly, "If that's the case, there will be a problem." The sword spirit couldn't help but ask, "What problem?" Chu Yang frowned and said very worriedly, "If this person is a man, then what about his wife? Can she take it?" The sword spirit looked at him dumbfounded. Chu Yang continued to worry. "If this person is a woman, then what about her husband? How can she? TSK. Poor man. He must feel so inferior and ashamed that he wants to die." The sword spirit was dumbfounded. Finally, he lowered his head in dejection and speechlessness. At this moment, the sword spirit deeply understood a truth. Why could Chu Yang become the last sword master of the Tribulation Sword and others couldn't? Because Chu Yang's thinking didn't belong to a human at all. The sword spirit would never be able to catch up with the speed of his thinking. When the previous sword masters of the Tribulation Sword obtained the Tribulation Sword, they were all thinking about what to do after cultivating the divine technique. They were all looking forward to the future. But this guy was thinking about such things at such a serious moment. The direction of his thinking was so out of tune. It was so ridiculous that the sword spirit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The sword spirit couldn't help but want to give his shameless face and dirty mouth a good kick. Just as he was about to express his feelings, the sword master said in a very strange voice, "Let's go. Why are you still in a daze at such a critical moment? What's wrong with your brain? You're starting to worry about the country and the people at this time? That's really untimely." Chu Yang shook his head. He criticized, "I really don't understand your brain. It doesn't belong to a human at all. It's too abnormal." Shaking his head, the sword spirit actually jumped over helplessly. It was as if he was saying, "You're abnormal, I'm ashamed to be associated with you." Even though the sword spirit was a soul, he also had the urge to vomit blood at this moment. "Who is the abnormal one between the two of us? Can you please figure it out?" Helpless, the sword spirit also floated over with a stomach full of depression. The sword master had already become extremely serious. He didn't give the sword spirit a chance to discuss the topic just now at all. He immediately said, "Long delays may cause trouble. Check immediately where exactly the sword mouthpiece is hidden." The sword spirit choked for a moment. He had no choice but to check carefully. In his dantian, the sword tip, sword edge, sword blade, and sword guard of the Calamity Sword, which were revolving around a strand of primordial real silk, suddenly stopped moving and automatically combined together. The sword intent that had been swimming around the four sword segments also stopped moving. Then the sword tip pointed upward and actually rushed out of Chu Yang's dantian. Chu Yang could clearly feel that the four sword segments in his body were all filled with an inexplicable feeling of ecstasy at this moment. It was as if brothers who had been separated for 10,000 years were about to reunite at this moment. And they could sense each other's presence. That seemed to be the case. The sword spirit checked for a while and pointed at his feet with certainty. It's right here. Chu Yang frowned. This place? Do I have to dig it all up? He felt a little regretful about this wonderful sight. Such a solitary pillar that had stood for tens of thousands of years. Such a wonderful sight would probably cease to exist the moment he took out the sword mouthpiece. The sword spirit nodded and said dispassionately, "It's absolutely impossible for such a stone pillar to stand for tens of thousands of years just by relying on the support of wind and thunder on both sides. The only possibility is, there's a heavenly treasure below. And only such a heavenly treasure that is favored by heaven and earth can use its life force to protect the stone pillar for tens of thousands of years." Heavenly treasure? Chu Yang was shocked. Could it be? The sword spirit nodded heavily, a smile in his eyes. "If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid another piece of miraculous medicine is about to be born." Chu Yang took a deep breath. His eyes emitted a dazzling light. He licked his lips and said, "I don't want to destroy this wonder. It's a gift from the heavens. I have no choice but to take it." The sword spirit snorted. "Isn't that too shameless? Haven't you always taken it as your duty to defy heaven?" Chu Yang flew into a rage out of humiliation. "Even if I want to defy heaven, I won't defy heavenly treasures." The sword spirit was completely speechless. Chu Yang was silent for a while and calmed his emotions. Finally, with a flip of his palm, the Calamity Sword appeared in his hand almost joyfully. With a swing of the sword, the mysterious ice that was tens of thousands of years old on the ground cracked open. Chu Yang kicked out. With two bangs, two pieces of mysterious ice the size of small mountains flew down the wind-thunder platform, revealing the brown stone surface. Chu Yang was about to slash down with his sword when he suddenly made a sound of surprise. He seemed to have discovered that the surface of the stone under his feet seemed to have changed color at this moment. It seemed to have turned yellow, but when he looked carefully there was no change. Stones can change color? Chu Yang asked. The sword spirit was startled. What? This guy obviously didn't see it. Chu Yang didn't say anything. He slashed 3 times consecutively. Immediately, stone fragments flew everywhere on the wind-thunder platform. The wind howled and thunder roared faintly. But Chu Yang's sword seemed to have cut the wind and thunder in half, slashing the wind and thunder on the wind-thunder platform. He stretched out his left hand and pressed it against the stone surface. With a sudden suction, a large piece of stone was sucked out by him. With a shake of his hand, the stone fell into the abyss with a rumble, accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder. The surface of the stone that he had cut open was the center of the power of wind and thunder. Once it was cut open, the left side rumbled with thunder and thunder, while the right side was raging with strong winds. What a magical power! Chu Yang sighed. His feet were nailed to the stone surface like rocks. Without any mercy, he slashed 7 or 8 times consecutively. Rocks continued to fall down the mountain with a rumbling sound. Fortunately, this place was desolate and uninhabited, and the mountain was sealed off by heavy snow. Otherwise, such a commotion would definitely attract people. Dozens of large stones were thrown down by him. With a snap, the stone platform that connected the 2 sides of the cliff finally broke. The left and right sides were like 2 large flat plates that fell from the sky. Only a straight stone pillar was left. There was no one to lean on either side. There was only one Chu Yang on top of the stone pillar. This feeling is really fucking exciting. Chu Yang stood on top of the stone pillar. After losing the traction and fixing force on both sides, the stone pillar with a diameter of 30 feet began to sway. Moreover, the sway was getting bigger and bigger. It was like a long and thin bamboo pole being blown by the wind, upside down, upside down. One could imagine how Minister Chu, who was at the top of this bamboo pole, felt at this moment. If not for his high cultivation level, he would have been thrown out long ago. This job is really not something an ordinary person can do. Chu Yang swayed left and right while his hands continued to mine. His movements were getting faster and faster. He was afraid that if this stone pillar fell, he would have to spend more effort to find it. Of course, the most important thing was that if it fell, the heavenly treasures inside would definitely be destroyed. That would make Chu Yang's heart ache. Banging sounds rang out continuously, shaking the valley. In the time it took to take a few breaths, Chu Yang had already dug down 400 feet like a hot knife through butter. He slashed horizontally with his sword, flew up, and kicked a large stone several feet away. Then he landed on the cross-section. Finally, when he had cut all the way down to 2,000 feet, the situation finally changed. Third update. Please vote. Chapter 1183. Ridiculous. The Demon Empress laughed without any expression. Her voice was cold. Zi Shiqing knelt down properly, biting her red lips. She did not say a word. Do you know the benefits of your body? The Demon Empress said lightly, although you are not a native of the Heaven Imperial Court, you are originally from the Purple Marten clan. But you unintentionally received the power of the sage and were reborn. Although your cultivation is low now, the power of the sage has been stabilized in your body. And you have cultivated the purple mystic core. This is different from the demons of the Heaven Imperial Court. So I need your help. Otherwise, I would not have taken a fancy to a small purple marten like you. Although you are the only purple mystic marten in the Heaven Imperial Court, you are just SOSO. The Demon Empress said coldly, you should know that I'm only taking some of your blood essence and some of your core essence to treat my son's illness. Even though it will greatly damage your body, it won't cause you to lose your roots, much less harm your life. Instead, I will repay you. You leave your root and I will send people to protect you until you recover. Then you can laugh proudly in the Heaven Imperial Court. The Demon Empress' eyes became colder and colder, and there was a murderous aura. Although you have hidden your strength, I can see that you are not an emperor. At most, you are only in the Heaven realm and only in the early stages. I value you because the power of the sage in your body can save Tai's life. That is all. Zi Shiqing said lightly, I've already known about this long ago. The Demon Empress said angrily, I am not talking nonsense with you. I want you to know that although your cultivation is low now, as long as you give up your blood and Jindan essence, after you recover and dual cultivate with Tai, you can cross the barrier that you have not crossed for hundreds of thousands of years. With the help of the power of the Demon Royal bloodline, you can activate the power of the sage in your body, and you can become the most promising star of the Heaven Imperial Court. I also want to tell you. As long as you agree when I die, as long as you are still alive, the position of the new Demon Empress will be yours. This is something that even the Tian Ke Celestial Emperor cannot change. When the time comes, you will be an overlord. Ruling the world. Waving your hand, the stars will bow. Changing the weather with anger. It is the ultimate life Leduo of everyone in the Heaven Imperial Court. Do you understand? The Demon Empress snorted coldly. I understand. Zi Shiqing's voice was low but firm. But I still want to be a human. Trash. The Demon Empress was displeased as her eyes shot out two rays of white light. He looked into Zi Shiqing's eyes and said, Zi Shiqing, look into my eyes when you speak. She stared at Zi Shiqing with the whites of her eyes and asked word by word, Are you serious? Want to be a human? You don't want to be a demon? Zi Shiqing's face revealed a perplexed look. It was as if her mind was completely bewitched at this moment, and she could only let her heart speak. Her voice rang out. Although she was confused, her words were clear. I want to be a human. The Demon Empress' body shook and the white light in her eyes vanished. He heaved a long sigh and said, You have disappointed me so much. The Demon Clan is now in a three-way battle and is losing ground. I waited so long for Gue to change his mind and come back by himself. I even teleported back to see you immediately. You actually only told me this one sentence. You want to be a human? Her voice was low and she couldn't hide the pain in her heart. Zi Shiqing regained her senses. She said guiltily, I only asked the Demon Empress to fulfill my wish. The Demon Empress heaved a long sigh. I'll tell you one last time. The Demon Empress' voice was heavy. She turned her face and said, Firstly, from a demon to a human. If you don't go through reincarnation, you have to go through the soul-splitting platform and experience the pain of splitting your soul 81 times. Then, you have to enter the heartbreak spring and experience the pain of your heart 81 times. Finally, you have to enter the demon forging cave and experience the demon annihilation thunder 81 times. You have to shed your demonic aura. Only then can you become a human. This process, not to mention you, even I. The Demon Empress took a deep breath and said, May not be able to bear it. Do you know? I know. Zi Shiqing said in a low voice, and I also know that the soul-splitting platform, heartbreak spring and demon forging cave are only with you. And only you can open them. Then, Do you know that once you make this decision, it's equivalent to betraying the entire demon clan? Especially the Purple Martin clan of the Heaven Imperial Court, it's a great humiliation. From then on, all the demons will treat you as a disgrace and kill you quickly. From then on, you will be the enemy of the entire world? The demon empress asked in a low voice. I know. Zi Shiqing said firmly. Do you know that after you sacrifice a portion of your lifeblood essence and Jindan essence, even if you can withstand the Soul Foundation stage, the Heartbreak Spring, and the Demon Tempering Cave, your cultivation base will be reduced to less than a tenth? And you will need 3 years to recover? She did not wait for Zi Shiqing to speak and continued, don't think that 3 years is a short time. In this world, even if you blink 3 times, the world will change. Before you blink, the world may celebrate. But when you open your eyes again, there may be a mountain of bones. And you, 70,000 years ago, when you ran amok in the Heaven Imperial Court, you should know how many people you have offended. In addition to the encirclement of all the demons in the world, how confident do you think you can survive? The demon empress asked coldly. Not even 10%. Zi Shiqing said frankly. If that's the case, then you can give up. The demon empress heaved a sigh of relief. Although I don't have a 50% chance of surviving, I will not regret it even if I die. Zi Shiqing straightened her delicate back. The demon empress turned around abruptly and looked at her sharply. How dare you? Zi Shiqing did not say anything. She pursed her lips, but her eyes were filled with determination. Beside the demon empress, a beautiful woman in white who had been sitting quietly asked softly, Zi Shiqing, I want to know why you did this. What is the reason? Zi Shiqing blushed and lowered her head. The woman in white's voice was very calm. She said lightly, for a man? Zi Shiqing bit her lips and nodded slowly. But even if you maintain your demon body, you can still marry him. Although both the human and demon clans will not tolerate it as long as you do it secretly, there is still a way out. The woman in white frowned slightly. Why must you seek your own death? Zi Shiqing's teeth sank deeply into her red lips. After a long time, she said with difficulty, 75,000 years ago by Susu? The demon empress and the woman in white trembled and looked at each other speechlessly. Bai Susu was a legend in the demon clan, a legend that betrayed the orthodox path. Bai Susu was the #1 genius of the White Fox clan. After she transformed, she wandered the martial world and accidentally met a descendant of the Windy Sky Pavilion. The two of them wandered the martial world side by side and fell in love with each other. Bai Susu knew that humans and demons could not coexist, so she hid her identity and married the man resolutely. However, tragedy finally happened. A few years later, their child was born. This child had a human body and a fox tail. The moment it was born, it was filled with demon aura. The descendant of the Windy Sky Pavilion was like a thunderbolt and questioned his wife. Bai Susu had no choice but to admit her identity. The man was also loyal. That night, he left the sect with his wife and child and fled to the ends of the world. However, both the human and demon clans could not tolerate such a thing. They chased after him and finally killed his entire family at the foot of Mount Kanglin. It was said that before he died, the fox elder asked Bai Susu if she regretted it. Bai Susu said, I regretted it later. I didn't dare to go through the soul-dividing platform in the demon-forging cave. Because of that, my husband and child lost their lives. I don't regret marrying him. I don't dare to regret it, and I can't regret it. I can't bear to regret it. After saying that, Bai Susu passed away. The elites who chased after her felt touched and buried her. They named the slanting valley as the Regretless Gorge. It was also from that time onwards that although the marriage between humans and demons was still prohibited on the surface, even if it was discovered secretly, everyone would turn a blind eye to it. They would no longer kill them. They knew that unless they loved each other to the extreme, no one would touch such a taboo. It could be said that Bai Susu had used her own life to open a window for a love that transcended the secular world. Although she did not enjoy it herself, whenever there was a demon clan member who loved a human so much that they could not help themselves and got married, they would come to the Regretless Gorge to worship Bai Susu. Although the Regretless Gorge had always been deserted, there were still candles burning all year round. Now that Zi Shiqing mentioned Bai Susu, the two women immediately understood what she was worried about. Zi Shiqing did not want the man she loved to be humiliated because of her. She did not want the man she loved to become the laughingstock of the world because of her. However, she could not leave him and could not let him go. Therefore, she resolutely chose to go through all kinds of pain and become a human. The beautiful woman in white sighed sadly. No one knew what she was thinking. After a long time she said, Big sister, you grant him his wish. You don't regret it? The Demon Empress sighed. She looked at Zi Sheqing with a complicated gaze. "Oh." Zi Sheqing nodded resolutely. "Is he worth it?" The woman in white asked. "I think he's worth it. Even if he's not worth it, he's worth it." Zi Sheqing replied softly. "Even if he's not worth it, he's worth it." The Demon Empress' eyes were cold. "One day I'd like to see if you're worth it." She turned around like a whirlwind and said word by word, "All right. Since you're so stubborn, you'll bear all the consequences alone. As long as you save my son, I'll grant your wish." "Thank you, Demon Empress," Zi Sheqing said gratefully. "No need to thank me." The Demon Empress said lightly, "This is a deal. I only want my son to come back to life. As for you, you just want to be a human. He, be a human. You saved my son and I'll grant you your wish to be a human. We'll exchange the money and the goods. We'll be clear and we won't owe each other anything." "Yes." Zi Sheqing relaxed and remained silent. It seemed that the words "we won't owe each other anything" had spoken to her heart. Chapter 1184. The beautiful lady in white looked at Zi Sheqing with a complicated look in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. "Do you have any other requests?" the Demon Empress asked. Zi Sheqing said, "When the Empress wakes up, please send someone to send me to my old residence in Jiangnan." The Demon Empress frowned. "This is the agreed place. I'm asking you if you have any other requests." "Other than that, I have no other requests." Zi Sheqing lowered her eyes. "Good." The Demon Empress gritted her teeth and said, "If that's the case, then you can die in Jiangnan." Her figure flashed and disappeared from the hall. Her voice came from afar. "Tomorrow morning, save my son. Tomorrow morning, send him to hell." The beautiful lady in white stood for a while and said softly, "You shouldn't have rejected the Demon Empress' kindness." Zi Sheqing said softly, "If I owe you today, I can't repay you. I hope you won't regret your decision today." The beautiful lady in white sighed. "That man, where is he now?" Zi Sheqing bit her lips and said, His cultivation is not enough to come up." The beautiful lady in white was stunned. She looked at her deeply and sighed. "You're so rash." Zi Sheqing smiled quietly. "I'm not rash. Through this I've cut off all my escape routes." The beautiful lady in white was stunned again. She laughed and said, "I see. Zi Sheqing, when you reach Jiangnan, maybe I'll visit you." Zi Sheqing smiled. "You're welcome anytime." The beautiful lady in white smiled faintly. Suddenly, a cloud of white fog rose from her feet. This white fog actually carried her whole body and floated out. Zi Sheqing stood up quietly. A gentle smile appeared on her lips. The next morning, Zi Sheqing was meditating in the courtyard. She sensed something. The Demon Empress' voice sounded. "Go to the Empress Dowager's bedroom. Everything is ready." When Zi Sheqing came out of the bedroom, her face was pale. At one side, the Demon Empress sighed and said, "You've used up too much energy. My son is fine now. But if you go to the soul-splitting platform now, you'll die. Let's do it in the afternoon." Zi Sheqing said, "Yes." She returned to her temporary residence and took out a purple pill. Her eyes revealed a gentle look. She swallowed it. It was the super-heavy pill that Chu Yang had refined for her. Only by eating it now could he recover a little. Once he entered the soul-splitting platform, the Heartbreak Spring, and the Demon Forging Cave, he absolutely could not take any medicine. The purpose of going there was to disperse his cultivation. If he still wanted to recover, then it would be meaningless. The Demon Empress' patience was obviously much better. He actually waited until the sky had turned dark before he summoned Zi Sheqing. He purposely gave her more time to rest. Seeing Zi Sheqing's arrival, the Demon Empress didn't beat around the bush and asked directly, "Are you ready?" Zi Sheqing nodded. "I'm ready." "You still have one last chance to regret," the Demon Empress said without any hope. "I will never regret it," Zi Sheqing replied. It was just as the Demon Empress had expected. The Demon Empress shut her mouth, closed her eyes, and didn't say anything else. Then she scolded. He shouted, "The soul-splitting platform." Heaven and earth split open. The heaven phase soul wanted to split apart, causing it to suffer for a long time. "Don't come in if you have a grudge." She opened her hands and a dark platform appeared in front of Zi Sheqing. The dark stone steps extended all the way to Zi Sheqing's feet. "Thank you." Zi Sheqing bowed and straightened her body. She stepped lightly on the first step and paused slightly. The Demon Empress' eyes flashed with a faint glimmer of hope. But Zi Sheqing's right foot had already stepped up. Step by step, she walked up steadily. Her white robe didn't even shake at all. Finally, she reached the soul-splitting platform. The Demon Empress' eyes were sharp. She clapped her hands. On the soul-splitting platform, a dark flame suddenly rose and completely enveloped Xi Sheching's delicate body. 3 days. Beside the Lake of Despair. A pitch-black hole suddenly appeared in the ice and snow. Then a human head popped out with a whoosh. Chu Yang, who was dressed in black, jumped out of the hole with a whoosh. Lake of Despair? Chu Yang recognized this place at first glance. It was mainly because the stone tablets of the two supreme martial artists, Qin Feng and Lu Yun, were too eye-catching. Then he felt that something was wrong. Why did the mountain become lower? The water level has risen. He didn't know that when he went missing, his brothers woke up to look for him. They almost tore down the entire mountain and dived down while hugging huge rocks. Over time they actually filled half the mountain into the Lake of Despair. It would be strange if the water level didn't rise. Forget it, I'll go look for them first. Chu Yang looked up to the sky and roared. His voice was earth-shattering and caused an avalanche in the surroundings. I'm back. The surroundings were silent. Only the echoes in the valley could be heard. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Chu Yang's figure shot down the mountain like lightning. This place wasn't far from the Ao clan and the Xie clan. Therefore Chu Yang was rushing towards the Xie clan at the fastest speed. He didn't forget that he only had 3 months. Time was tight. Therefore he couldn't waste any time. The first thing he wanted to do was to see how his brothers were doing. How was their cultivation? How were the 3 days? Chu Yang was surprised to find that the order of the 3 days was very good. There weren't many incidents along the way. Often there would be people in sky blue robes walking around busily or in groups. Then there would be people in black robes appearing and disappearing. The black-clothed people had a bamboo symbol on their clothes. There was no doubt that they were from the dark bamboo. However, who were the people in sky blue clothes? When he finally turned a mountain pass and arrived at the Xie clan, there were more and more people in sky blue clothes. Chu Yang finally stopped and grabbed one of them. I want to ask about something. What's the matter? This was a man in his 30s. He rolled his eyes and looked at Chu Yang. What organization are you from? Chu Yang asked. You didn't see this clearly? The man in blue proudly shook his clothes. This. Chu Yang was puzzled. You can't see this? What color is it? The man in blue squinted. Blah. Chu Yang was extremely puzzled. The man in blue looked as if he had seen an alien. You saw this but you still don't know who I am? Chu Yang was puzzled. Should I know? The man in blue looked at him strangely. The two of them stared at each other. Suddenly the man roared, Brothers, this little one dares to look down on the heavenly armament pavilion. Looking down on the heavenly armament pavilion is looking down on Boss Chu. Men come. Teach him a lesson. Immediately, a group of men in blue came over eagerly. Chu Yang left in a hurry. Such a powerful organization. So it's the heavenly armament pavilion? Damn, it seems that those guys are not idle. The heavenly armament pavilion has actually developed to such a scale. However, if that little one knew that the guy he chased away was the Boss Chu he was talking about, what would he think? I wonder how they would feel about this. When he arrived at the Xie clan, Chu Yang found out that Xie Danxiong had already gone to the Ao clan more than a year ago. GMO Luo Kadi, Gu Duxing and the others had also gone. They had not come out yet. They had already been in seclusion for more than a year. Chu Yang hurriedly left the Xie clan and went to the Ao clan. The Ao clan also looked troubled. Those few people had entered the secret area of the Dragon clan and never came out. Chu Yang was stunned. He had gone through so much trouble to come down, but he could not see a single one of them? When he came to the place where Ao Shiyun and the others had gone in, Chu Yang hurriedly punched out. With his current cultivation he actually broke through half of the entire mountain with one punch. There was nothing. Chu Yang was a little anxious. Damn it. It was not easy for me to come down. Next time I'll have to wait for the Tribulation Sword fragment. These guys all went into seclusion at the same time? Once you enter the secret area of the Dragon clan, it becomes a space of its own. Unless they come out of seclusion on their own, we will not be able to find them. Ao Chenxing also looked helpless. How long do you think they will take before they come out? This is hard to say. Chu Yang left in disappointment. Before he left, he punched a few words on the mountain wall. Gu Duxing Mo Tianji GMO Luo Kadi Ao Shiyun Xie Danxiong. I'm very angry. The next time I see them I'll train them all. After he finished writing, Chu Yang asked Ao Chenxing, who was breaking out in cold sweat, Where's my junior brother Tan Tan? The Ao clan leader was shocked. How did Chu Yang become so terrifying? My God. Clan Master Ao felt his legs go soft as he looked at the dozens of miles big hole that Chu Yang had punched out. Damn it, in the future the AO clan could move in to avoid the heat during the hot summer. I haven't seen him. After the battle at the Lake of Despair, he disappeared. AO Qianxing said. Disappeared? Yang was depressed. It turned out that he could not see anyone when he came down this time. Speechless, he bade farewell to AO Qianxing. Yang only said, then I'll come back in 2 months. With a whoosh he disappeared. He rushed to the lower 3 heavens at full speed. In the lower 3 heavens, there was still an emperor's wife waiting for him. There was also someone he had never met before. Speaking of which, he had not truly met his wife either. Damn it, what was this? Chu Yang's speed was extremely fast. He entered the passage again and went all the way to the lower 3 heavens. When he came out, it was already dawn. Stepping on the morning dew, Chu Yang rode the wind and finally arrived at Iron Cloud Citadel just as the sun rose. Returning to this place, Chu Yang was filled with emotions for a moment. Thinking of the battles of wits and courage in the past and the bloody battles here for a moment, he actually felt like a fleeting cloud in a pipe dream. Strolling into Iron Cloud Citadel, he saw that Iron Cloud Citadel was extremely prosperous. In addition, the entire city was almost 3 times larger than before. Chu Yang spent a lot of effort before he finally found the original location of Butian Pavilion. Butian Pavilion was still Butian Pavilion. Chu Yang fluttered over and was immediately stopped by 2 black-clothed imperial bodyguards. Stop. Who is it? Chu Yang asked with a smile. May I ask, who is Chengong and Qin Yutong here? What, you are looking for us 2 pavilion masters? Just you? The guards were furious and said with a dark face. Chu Yang was not angry at all. He said, please report that there is someone with the surname Chu called Chu Yang who wishes to see, the 2 pavilion masters. The second one was even worse. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1185. Chu Yang didn't expect Cheng Ong and Qin Yutong to actually be promoted to pavilion masters after he left. Pavilion masters. Did this guy bump his butt against the seats when he was sitting on them? A knowing smile appeared on Chu Yang's face. Let the fun begin. You wish to see our pavilion masters? The 2 guards sized him up from head to toe. With their nostrils up, they snorted disdainfully and shook their heads. Line up over there. Line up. Chu Yang was taken aback. Why didn't it work after he said his name? Are they rebelling? Nonsense. You want to see our pavilion masters without lining up? The guards looked at Chu Yang as if he were a country bumpkin. You must have just come out from the mountains, right? Ha! Chu Yang stared blankly. What the heck, I actually need to line up to see Chengong. Just look at it. The 2 guards laughed arrogantly. Do you think you can see our pavilion masters just because you want to? Do you see? As they spoke, they gestured to the side with their mouths. Stunned, Chu Yang turned to look. Sure enough, there was a square at the side. In the square, there was a statue of a man 100 feet tall, shining with golden light all over. This statue was really majestic and full of murderous intent. It was obviously made of gold, but it was painted black gold. The sword in its hand shone with golden light, as if it wanted to split the sky in half. A black cape fluttered behind it. 1 foot was on the ground while the other was raised and stepped forward. It looked like it was ready to step through mountains of swords and seas of fire. There was a hideous and terrifying mask on its face, as if the king of hell had just emerged from the netherworld. It was eerie and frightening. There were quite a number of people standing and waiting under the statue. Most of them were actually wearing official robes. From the looks of it, they weren't of low quality. Do you see that? The guard lectured. So many court officials have to line up here to see the 2 pavilion masters. You actually want to see them the moment you arrive? Chu Yang rubbed his nose and asked curiously, who is this statue? It looks so powerful. The guard's eyes widened at once. He stuttered, Are you still from this world? You actually don't know our Minister Chu? Minister Chu? Chu Yang was stunned. Yes, Minister Chu. The bearded imperial bodyguard said, this is the statue of King of Hell Chu whose name shakes the world, Butian Pavilion's only Minister Chu, and Iron Cloud Empire's King Chu, who is on par with the Emperor. Chu Yang was dumbstruck. So it's King of Hell Chu, Minister Chu, Prince Chu? Since you are so young and honest and your surname is also Chu, I will tell you about Minister Chu's power. Listen carefully, you country bumpkin. Imperial bodyguard Da, who had obviously been standing guard for a long time, and was bored out of his mind. So, he had become a chatterbox. It was rare to meet an idiot who didn't even know who Minister Chu was. Minister Chu took control of Butian Pavilion, and in just one day he caught tens of thousands of spies in Iron Cloud. He cleaned up thousands of officials and laid the foundation of Iron Cloud Empire that will never be uprooted, When the current emperor was still a grand emperor, he and Minister Chu became sworn brothers. After that, Minister Chu went to Great Zhao alone, with the strength of one person, sweeping away Great Zhao's Golden Horse Riders department. Then he fought a bloody battle and broke through the encirclement of Great Zhao's 30 million soldiers. He fought non-stop for 18,500 miles. He killed more than 10 million enemies. He killed until the clear sky turned blood red. Then he returned to Iron Cloud safe and sound. He immediately organized a decisive battle with the #1 traitor Di Wuqing on the battlefield. Imperial bodyguard De whose saliva flew everywhere. Jianghu was dumbfounded. He opened his mouth wide. So awesome. Of course. Damn, don't interrupt. I haven't finished yet. Imperial bodyguard De who continued. In that decisive battle, Iron Cloud was at a disadvantage. But when Minister Chu arrived, he reversed the situation in an instant. He was dressed in black with a mask on his face. He was wielding a 30 feet long thunder and lightning saber. He was riding a chasing wind lightning horse. In just one breath, he rushed into the enemy's formation. The enemy was shocked. They said, "King of Hell Chu is here. Everyone run." It was too late. Since Minister Chu had arrived, how could he let them escape? Therefore Minister Chu swung his saber. With one slash, the entire mountain peak was cut in half. After the battle, according to the statistics of the Military Affairs Department, there were 787 people killed. A total of 7,887 people were beheaded, and 13,415 people were severed at the waist. One slash, just one slash, and more than 20 million people died a violent death. You did not calculate incorrectly. 20,000 people were killed by Minister Chu. More than 1,000 people were scared to death by that one slash. After the battle, 80 million soldiers of Great Zhao died a violent death. Thus, our Iron Cloud Empire was conquered in one battle. Minister Chu's contributions are higher than the sky and deeper than the sea. Chu Yang's hair stood on end as he listened. This does not seem to be talking about me? Why is it getting more and more confusing? Not to mention then, even now, to kill 20,000 people with one slash. It seems that I am still far from that. Unfortunately, such a peerless hero was punished by the heavens because he killed too many people. Not long after the battle, he became seriously ill and passed away. Before he left, he sighed and said, "This old man has killed more than 70 million people in his life. Today I have suffered the wrath of the heavens. I have no regrets even if I die. Finished speaking, I can rest in peace." Chu Yang's whole body was covered in goosebumps. He could not help but shiver. More than 70 million? He suddenly felt that something was wrong. Old man? This Minister Chu is an old man? De Hu stared and said, "What do you think?" Chu Yang was a little dizzy. He covered his temples with his hands and groaned, "What happened after that?" After that, His Majesty the Emperor recognized his merits and conferred him the title of king equal to one word. Outside of Butian Pavilion, he gathered 100,000 taels of gold and erected a statue of the minister for the world to admire. His Majesty said, Butian Pavilion was established because of Minister Chu. Minister Chu also died for Iron Cloud. Since the beginning of Butian Pavilion, there has only been one minister. After thousands of years, Butian Pavilion will not have a second minister. Therefore, from then on, the leader of Butian Pavilion became a pavilion master. Dahu's saliva flew everywhere as he finally finished speaking. Chu Yang was already dizzy from listening to all this. He felt as if there were golden claps of thunder above his head. He finally understood what hearsay was and what it meant to be fearful of gossip. He felt a pushing force on his back. He was already being pushed toward the statue of Minister Chu. Go over there and wait." At this moment, people shouted and horses neighed. In the distance, a group of honor guards with dazzling sabers and spears could be seen. Their armor shone brightly as they strode over. The men were like tigers and the horses were like dragons. What a valiant group of soldiers. The one in the lead rode on his horse valiantly and spiritedly. His eyes were narrowed and his expression was cold. A wisp of goatee hung high in front of his chest. He rode on his horse just like that. His hands were not holding the reins. Just like that, his hands were tucked into his sleeves. From head to toe, he exuded an aura of being 1,000 miles away. Along the way, immediately someone among the officials shouted, "Pavilion Master Chen. Pavilion Master, Lord Pavilion Master, I have something to report. Pavilion Master Chen. I have an important matter to discuss with you." Cheng Yang's face was as red as a jujube. His eyelids drooped and he didn't look askance at all. When he reached the door, the horse stopped automatically. An official had already rushed over and knelt down under the saddle. With both hands on the ground, he straightened his back. He said obsequiously, "Pavilion Master, please get off the horse." Only then did Chang'an raise his eyebrows. He glanced at this person and said dispassionately, "Lord Han, I don't think this is very appropriate." "It's my honor." This Lord Han nodded like a lapdog, revealing an extremely obsequious smile. Chang'an nodded dispassionately. "All right." With a tilt of his body, he stepped accurately on the spine of this Lord Han. Then he slowly dismounted from the horse. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth twitched. This Chang'an. He actually became like this? He's acting like a tyrant. He's already a martial king, yet he still has to step on someone else when he dismounts? After Chang'an got off the horse, he shouted, "Guards!" At once, 2 guards in black ran over. They bowed and stood at attention. "Pavilion Master, take this Lord Han to the authorities and remove his crown. Throw him into jail and start an investigation immediately." Chang'an didn't even raise his head or open his eyes. He actually knelt in front of me and asked me to get off the horse. This kind of person will do anything to achieve his goals. If he becomes an official, he will definitely cause trouble. We must investigate carefully. The guards acknowledged the order. They picked up Lord Han, who was already trembling all over and whose eyes had rolled back, and left. Along the way, cries of "innocent" could be heard continuously. Everyone knew that this Lord Han was finished. With his hands behind his back, Chang'an stood in front of the door of Butian Pavilion. His eyes swept across the crowd authoritatively. He said dispassionately, "Everyone, is there anyone who has any objections to my actions?" At once, everyone was singing his praises. Pavilion Master Cheng is right. Pavilion Master is wise. Pavilion Master's eyes are as sharp as torches. He's finally found the black sheep today. Chang'an stroked his beard and smiled, immensely pleased with himself. At this moment, someone said, "Pavilion Master Cheng, how awe-inspiring." Chang'an snorted and looked over from the corner of his eyes. What? Before he could finish his sentence, his words were stuck in his throat. His mouth was wide open like that of a dying catfish, unable to close. His gaze met a young man in black standing there with his hands behind his back. He was looking at him with a half-smile. The expression on his face and in his eyes were thought-provoking. Chang'an was stunned. By this time, the crowd was already in an uproar. Everyone was scolding this rude fellow. Where did this bastard come from? He really doesn't know the rules. Beat him to death. Throw his corpse into the wilderness. Chop him into pieces. Exterminate his clan. However, by this time, Pavilion Master Cheng's face had already turned into a dye-house. It turned from rosy to pale white, then to bright red, then to a waxy yellow, and then to a ghastly white again. Droplets of sweat dripped down. Then, amidst the angry curses of the crowd, Pavilion Master Cheng rushed over as if his butt was on fire. He actually bent his back and took small, quick steps. There was surprise and flattery on his face as well as some disbelief. He rushed all the way to Chu Yang. He paused for a moment, looked up, and suddenly burst into tears. "You, Lord? Lord, it's really you." The authoritative Pavilion Master fell to his knees with a thud. He hugged the legs of the man in black with both hands, tears and snot flowing out of his eyes. Everyone was dumbstruck at this moment. Chapter 1186. Looking at Pavilion Master Cheng, who was kneeling on the ground, hugging the other party's leg and bawling his eyes out like a child, everyone was collectively petrified. Everyone's mouths were agape, feeling as if their eyeballs were about to pop out. Their eyeballs were bouncing around. Who was Pavilion Master Cheng? Pavilion Master Cheng was the Pavilion Master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion, which was independent of the government. He supervised all the officials in the world. He was second only to one person and above everyone else. Even the flying generals of Long Qingfei Tai Long Cheng, and the Iron Royal Uncle, had to be courteous to Pavilion Master Cheng. Even when Pavilion Master Cheng met the current emperor, he wouldn't be so fawning and ingratiating, much less kneeling on the ground and bawling like a child. Who exactly was this young man? The eyes of the 2 guards at the door were so wide that they were about to pop out. Oh my God, what kind of ferocious person was this? And I actually shut this ferocious person out just now. With a helpless look on his face, Chu Yang said softly, "Get up quickly. What are you doing like this?" "I won't get up. I won't get up." Pavilion Master Cheng cried and yelled, his voice choked and extremely sorrowful. Sob, sob, sob. "I won't get up even if I die." Everyone was completely petrified. With a thud, An elderly official couldn't take such a strong shock anymore. Blood rushed to his head and his heart stopped beating. His eyes rolled back and he collapsed stiffly onto the ground. There was a moment of panic. Someone hurried over to carry this old official away for treatment. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the main entrance. A lean figure dashed out at lightning speed. What's going on? It was the other pavilion master of the heaven-mending pavilion, Qin Yutong. Pavilion Master Qin. Pavilion Master Qin strode out quickly. The first thing he saw was Pavilion Master Qing kneeling in front of someone, crying bitterly. His eyes widened the moment he took a closer look. Then he rubbed his eyes and then rubbed them again. Then he shook his head violently, turned around and knocked his head against the wall. With a loud boom, a hole was smashed into the wall. Then he turned around and stared blankly at that young man. As he stared, his eyes filled with tears. Then he buried his head in his hands and bawled loudly. This set of movements was like a person who suddenly had an epileptic abscess and a mole. Then, with tears in her eyes, she rushed over and knelt down with a plop. She hugged the other leg of the young man and cried loudly, "You Lord! My Lord! You're back, you're back!" A strange sound came from everyone's mouth. Someone couldn't bear it and fainted. The two imperial bodyguards at the entrance felt their bodies go soft. 2 puddles of mud slid down the doorpost. Their eyes were staring blankly, and their heads were sweating profusely. Heavens! This time I really have to go back and see the doctor. Was I scared out of my wits today? Get up quickly. Chuyang frowned. I came here secretly. You guys? Hearing this, Chang'an immediately jumped up and roared, "Someone come. Detain everyone at the scene. Don't even let a rat's hair go." With a whoosh, hundreds of heaven-mending pavilions martial artists immediately formed a large circle and captured everyone within the circle. Take them into the courtyard. Including yourselves, no one is allowed to come out. Chang'an waved his hand. Executioners, get ready. If necessary, kill everyone to silence them. Everyone jumped in fright at once. Chuyang was also shocked. Wait, it's not that serious. Then detain them first. Chang'an immediately changed his order. Then he and Qin Yutong bowed respectfully and invited Chuyang in like a bodhisattva. Their waists were bent so low that their foreheads were almost touching the ground. Qin Yutong walked behind them and asked the 2 imperial bodyguards in a low voice, "What did this guest say just now?" One of the imperial bodyguards was sweating profusely. Even his eyes were a little dazed. He stammered, He, his surname is Chu, his name is Chuyang. He requests to see the 2 pavilion masters." Qin Yutong nodded and waved his hand. "Take these 2 people down. Detain them. Without my orders, don't let them go." Since the minister said that his whereabouts must be kept secret, then not even the slightest bit of information must be leaked. If necessary, these 1,000-odd people would all be killed to silence them. We're innocent. Pavilion Master. The 2 imperial bodyguards hurriedly knelt down and begged, but a few martial artists had already come over and tied them up and brought them in. Qin Yutong waved his hand and summoned the imperial bodyguards who were changing shifts. "If a single word of what happened today is leaked, the 2 of you can kill your entire families first, then commit suicide." The 2 new imperial bodyguards were scared out of their wits. What the fuck, it's not even time to change shifts yet and they're already changing us. They were just feeling aggrieved when they heard such words. What happened today? The sentence was a bit too fierce. In front of Butian Pavilion, peace was restored. At Butian Pavilion, the 3 people who had reunited after a long time were deeply moved. Chuyang spent the strength of a camel to stop these 2 old subordinates from crying. The 3 of them exchanged pleasantries for a long time. Qin Yutong had a lot to say. After a long while, Chuyang pretended to suddenly remember something and brought up the main topic. "I heard that His Majesty has an heir? Is it a Grand Empress?" Chang'an said excitedly, "Yes, it's the Empress. She's called Taiyang. She's smart and cute. It seems that our Iron Cloud has produced another wise ruler." Taiyang? Murmuring this name, Chu Yang's heart became even more certain. However, looking at this name, it didn't seem too good. It seemed that Tai Butian actually wanted to leave her son in Iron Cloud? Chuyang pondered. It's a pity that the Empress, after giving birth to the Empress, she passed away, Chang'an and Qin Yutong naturally knew Wu Qianqian. They also knew that Miss Qianqian was in love with Minister Chu back then, but Minister Chu never accepted her. Now when mentioning this matter, they were also a little cautious. Chuyang sighed. Yes, it's a pity. Both of them felt that Minister Chu's reaction was a little too calm. However, this was a private matter between the 2 of them. Moreover, Wu Qianqian was already the Empress and had already passed away. It didn't seem right to mention it again. After chatting for a long time, Chuyang finally confirmed one thing after another. Tai Butian really didn't have the intention to acknowledge him. Moreover, her son also didn't have the intention to let him acknowledge his ancestors. This matter had made Minister Chu furious. This be ****. Chuyang slammed the table heavily and scolded through gritted teeth. See if I don't teach her a lesson. Cheng-Ang and Chen Yu-tong looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what was going on. We seem to have been talking about His Majesty just now. Why did Minister Chu suddenly scold a ****? Who is it? Cheng-Ang cautiously asked. May I ask the minister, who is this immortal, shameful woman? What does it have to do with you? Chu Yang's nostrils flared fiercely. He was furious. You two, how much have your cultivations improved since I left? Obviously he wanted to change the target. It's over, it's over. The two of them groaned inwardly. Go practice. Minister Chu kicked the table away. Look at how lazy the two of you are. The fat on your body can be boiled into oil enough to feed an entire army. Each of you, carry a 500-kilogram rock on your back and run 100 rounds around Butian Pavilion. Ha! The two pavilion masters' faces turned bitter at once. Now that they were back and reunited after a long separation, they were immediately going to be beaten and scolded. With bitter expressions, the two pavilion masters went to receive their punishment. Then, everyone in Butian Pavilion discovered something so strange that their jaws dropped. The two pavilion masters, who usually lived like princes, were each carrying a huge rock the size of a small mountain on their backs. They were sweating profusely and running like old cows, round and round. At night, Cheng-Ang prepared a sumptuous banquet to welcome Chuyang back. Chuyang pondered for an entire afternoon. He thought so hard that his head hurt, but he still couldn't come up with a solution. He sat at the banquet with a dark face. The two of them carefully accompanied him, their hearts beating wildly. Olchen, why don't you drink less? It's your turn to attend morning court tomorrow morning. Cheng-Ang reminded Chen Yu-tong. It's nothing. When Minister Chu is back, I'll drink with him even if His Majesty has to behead me. Chen Yu-tong replied heroically, his hands on his back. What? Morning court? Chuyang was startled. He turned and asked. Yes. Since when did Butian Pavilion start holding morning court? Chuyang frowned. The two pavilion masters looked at each other, both feeling that this question wasn't easy to answer. Will His Majesty attend morning court as well? Chuyang asked with a frown. Of course His Majesty will attend. Cheng-Ang was very puzzled by the minister's words. If His Majesty didn't attend, how could it be called morning court? That's great. Chuyang nodded and smiled. Chen Yu-tong, don't worry and drink. I'll attend the morning court tomorrow. You'll go? The two pavilion masters' faces lit up at once. Then realization dawned on them. Minister Chu wants to give His Majesty a surprise? Chuyang grinned. Yes, a surprise. I want to give His Majesty a big surprise. Minister Chu had emphasized the word pleasant surprise in his speech. Even his expression was a little sinister. Cheng-Ang and Chen Yu-tong were a little unsettled. Minister Chu couldn't have come back to assassinate His Majesty, could he? That shouldn't be possible. The two of them took a closer look and saw that apart from the sinister expression on Minister Chu's face, there was actually a lewd smile at the corners of his mouth. The two of them shuddered. They looked at each other with tacit understanding and lowered their heads to drink and eat. Don't talk while eating and don't talk while sleeping. This was an old adage. Chuyang was dressed in a black robe, looking drunk. He wore the traditional mask of Butian Pavilion on his face and sat in a large palanquin with 8 carriers. Amidst the sounds of eat of the palanquin bearers, he walked majestically all the way to the morning court. The morning court was held in the Heavenly Sun Hall. It sounded like His Majesty had changed it after he ascended the throne. Upon hearing this name, Chuyang felt somewhat better. When he reached the front of the hall, he saw that the military officials were already waiting in groups. Chuyang coughed and walked in with a majestic gait. Instantly he brought with him the smell of alcohol. All the military officials in the hall looked askance. But this was the pavilion master of Butian Pavilion. Who dared to say a word about him? After a moment, the sound of ceremonial guards rang out. Melodious music of musical instruments rang out. A sharp voice shouted, His Majesty the Emperor has arrived. Everyone hurried forward to welcome him. Chuyang looked up and saw a bright yellow ceremonial guard slowly approaching from afar. On the palanquin was a person dressed in bright yellow clothes and wearing a crown. His face was like jade and his eyes were calm and dignified. Naturally, he carried with him an unparalleled aura of power that could conquer the world. The world in his hands, the mountains and rivers in his heart, the wind and clouds in his grasp, and the nation in his chest. The sovereign descends to the world. Chapter 1187. Amidst the cheers of the officials, Tai Budian slowly got down from the imperial chariot. Her eyes swept across the crowd and she said softly, "Rise?" The officials thanked her and stood up. But there was one person who didn't kneel. Chu Yang leaned against a pillar in the main hall and looked at Tai Budian. He snorted inwardly, "You want me to kneel to you?" However, after not seeing him for almost 2 years, this young emperor had obviously changed from the past. He was still young and handsome. He was still tall and straight. Compared to the past, he was more graceful and less immature. His every move was already natural. Tai Budian didn't think that Chu Yang, who was pretending to be Pavilion Master Cheng, didn't kneel and greet her. The officials were also used to it. It turned out that the Pavilion Masters of Butian Pavilion had this privilege. Once they entered the Golden Hall, they represented Minister Chu and didn't have to kneel. Who in Iron Cloud didn't respect King of Hell Chu? Under the imperial family's relentless promotion, Minister Chu had already become the savior of the entire Iron Cloud. Not kneeling in front of the emperor? What was wrong with that? That was only right. Even if it was only on behalf of Minister Chu, they definitely couldn't lower their heads to anyone. Tai Budian strode forward, getting nearer and nearer. Chu Yang was suddenly at a loss. This was clearly a man. Was it really a woman? Minister Chu looked at Tai Budian and sized her up carefully. The more he looked, the more suspicious he became. She had an Adam's apple. She didn't have a chest. Her waist wasn't very thin and her hips weren't round either. Apart from the lack of facial hair, no matter how one looked at her, she was a man. Chu Yang muttered inwardly, "Wu Qianshan definitely wouldn't lie to me." But what was going on now? Could it be that this B*Tisich had been pretending to be a man for too long? Had half of him also become a man? Minister Chu sized her up with a sneaky look. Tai Budian walked to the front of the officials. Suddenly, her eyes swept over them and she said gently, "Prime Minister Wang, I heard that you're sick. Why aren't you resting at home? I wanted to visit you after the morning court assembly today, but I didn't expect to see you here. Prime Minister is already advanced in age. You need to take care of yourself." Prime Minister Wang said gratefully, "Your Majesty, you are so concerned about the affairs of the state, but you still remember my illness. I'm so grateful. How could I dare to delay the affairs of the state?" Tai Budian sighed. He said, "Yesterday we have already prepared the corresponding medicine and prescription. Later, after the morning court session, I'll send an imperial physician to the Prime Minister's residence to treat the Prime Minister." The monarch was so compassionate towards his subordinates that all the officials felt the same way. All of them looked at Prime Minister Wang with envy. Some of their eyes were already wet. Tai Budian was calm and amiable. Along the way, she exchanged a few pleasantries with a few officials, making them feel as if they were bathed in a spring breeze. The morning court assembly had not yet begun, but the atmosphere of loyalty and patriotism was already thick and strong. Tai Budian was walking forward. Suddenly he smelled a strong smell of alcohol. She couldn't help but frown slightly. Following the smell, she saw the pavilion master of Butian Pavilion, dressed in black, leaning against a pillar in the corridor, looking like he was still drunk. The two pavilion masters of Heaven Mending Pavilion had always taken turns to attend court. Yesterday it was Qingong. Of course it was Qin Yutong today. "Pavilion Master Cheng, were you drunk last night?" the emperor asked jokingly. Tai Budian had always treasured these two old subordinates that Chu Yang had left behind. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given them so much preferential treatment. "Yes, I was drunk," Chu Yang said vaguely. He thought to himself, drunk from anger. Tai Budian turned and said, "Give Pavilion Master Cheng a bowl of hangover soup." Immediately, an attendant agreed. Not long after, a bowl of thick hangover soup was brought over. Chu Yang naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony. He took it and gulped it down. This kind of treatment made the eyes of all the military officials green with envy. Butian Pavilion was indeed impressive. Tai Budian finally walked to the dragon throne. Facing the south, he sat down slowly. After a round of formalities, the court assembly began. Chu Yang shrank to the side and listened. The more he listened, the more bored he became. It was nothing more than a drought in the east, a flood in the west, bandits in the north, a lack of officials in the south. Which one was appointed? Which one was appointed? Which one was corrupt? Which one was praised for benefiting the people? Other than that, it was about the impeachment of officials. The censors and censors came out one by one to make their statements. Then there would be rebuttals from the opposing side. Then there would be a war of words between both sides, and so on and so forth. Chu Yang couldn't help but yawn as he listened. Thankfully he wasn't the emperor. If he had to face these things every day he might have long had a mental breakdown, but Tai Budian sat upright on the dragon throne. His attitude was serious as he reviewed each and every one of them and replied seriously. He was extremely serious. He gave a clear answer to each and every one of them. There were only a few items that were suppressed. With the emperor being so serious and serious, how would the officials dare to be negligent? Of course they were even more energized. They were afraid that His Majesty would catch a glimpse of their negligence. If that happened, they would be in for a great deal of joy. This was also the main reason why the efficiency of the Iron Cloud Empire's officials was especially high. The emperor was smart, diligent and discerning. The officials didn't dare to be negligent. And as they went down they became stricter and stricter. Even as a first-grade official he had to work day and night. How could the people below him not be more efficient? And so, the results were very obvious. Only after 3 hours did these trivial matters come to an end. Immediately after, they began to study the border matters and the problems of governance. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. And at this time, the sun actually shone into the hall at a slanted angle. Finally, Tai Budian received a cup of tea from a palace maid and took a sip. Then, she asked dispassionately, "Pavilion Master Qin, during this period of time, how's the matter regarding the supervision of all the officials in the world coming along?" Chu Yang was drowsy. Hearing this, he hurriedly stood up straight. Tai Budian smiled and said, "Butian Pavilion has always been very effective in rectifying the governance of the officials. Some time ago, we rectified the 2 directions in the east and south respectively. There were some problems that even I was shocked by. Counting the days, the report from the northwest should have arrived by now." Chu Yang wiped his saliva and stared blankly for a while. Then he said, About this I forgot." He didn't disguise these few words but used his original accent. Instantly the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone's gazes were as sharp as knives. This bastard relying on Her Majesty's favor, how dare he be so rude? On the other side, an official with a head full of white hair was furious. It was that Prime Minister Wang. He said loudly and shakily, "Pavilion Master Qin, what do you mean by this? Her Majesty trusts you and that's why she entrusted you with the important task of supervising all the officials in the world. How dare you be so inattentive? This is a matter of national importance. This is..." He was so angry that he was shaking uncontrollably, unable to speak. Someone at the side, perhaps trying to smooth things over or add fuel to the fire, said lightly, "Pavilion Master Qin is drunk, it's not surprising that he forgot. Why is Prime Minister Wang so angry?" Prime Minister Wang was even more furious. How can a matter of national importance be ruined by alcohol? No matter how prestigious Butian Pavilion is, it can't be so ridiculous. It was obvious that this group of people led by Prime Minister Wang was an important member of the opposition to Butian Pavilion. However, when Tai Budian heard Chu Yang's words, her body trembled slightly. 2 dazzling lights suddenly flashed across her eyes. She stared intently at this Pavilion Master Qin, who exuded a languid aura and reeked of alcohol. She said slowly, "Pavilion Master Qin, what did you say just now? I didn't understand." Everyone could tell from her words that Her Majesty seemed to be restraining something with all her might. Everyone was guessing that in the next moment the heavens would probably shake and blood would flow like a river. This monarch was very decisive in killing people. Even if you, Qin Yutong, were a pavilion master of Butian Pavilion, it was ultimately because of King of Hell Chu that you were able to attain such a position. Now that you're courting death, you can't blame anyone else. The hall was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Although everyone looked serious on the surface, they were actually gloating. Cough cough. Chu Yang coughed and cleared his throat. He raised his head and looked at Tai Budian with clear eyes. He said slowly, "Your Majesty, you didn't hear me clearly? Then I'll say it again. What I said just now was, well, I forgot about that." This sentence was practically adding fuel to the fire. Too arrogant, too presumptuous. This was not the attitude a subject should have when speaking to Her Majesty. At once, the hall was in an uproar. All the officials were filled with rage. All of them wanted Pavilion Master Qin Yutong to be removed from his post and investigated. They wanted him to be thrown into the imperial prison and executed by 1,000 cuts. Everyone jumped out, all of them very agitated. Especially Prime Minister Wang and the others. They were so angry that smoke was coming out of their 7 orifices. They all went forward and knelt down. "We implore your majesty to immediately execute this fatherless traitor. Chen Yutong's disrespect to your majesty is a capital offense. No matter what, he cannot be pardoned." From the beginning to the end, after Tai Budian heard Chu Yang's words, she suddenly froze on the spot. Her eyes stared fixedly at Chu Yang's black-robed figure. Her hands gripped the armrest of the dragon throne so tightly that the veins on her hands were popping out. Her entire body was trembling slightly. This voice was not Chen Yutong's. This voice was his. When her eyes met the clear gaze behind the mask, Tai Butian's mind buzzed and she only felt waves of dizziness. After a long while, she finally closed her eyes weakly and waved her hands. "Court dismissed. Pavilion Master Chen, stay." "Your Majesty!" all the officials exclaimed. They never expected Her Majesty to be so angry that she actually dismissed the court session immediately. "Your Majesty, please take care of your body." "I said dismiss the court session." Tai Budian slammed the table. "All of you leave." The heavenly might shook the entire hall. All the officials didn't dare to say a word. Even Prime Minister Wang, who had been kneeling for a long time just now, hurriedly got up. At this point they definitely couldn't go against Her Majesty. They would really die. "All of you leave as well." Tai Budian shouted to the palace maids and servants. "Leave together with the guards." "Yes." In an instant only 2 people were left in the hall. The current emperor, Tai Budian, and this fake pavilion master Chen. Chapter 1188. Chu Yang opened and closed his mouth. A few words circled around in his heart, but he still swallowed them back in the end. He smiled and said, "Your Majesty's eyes are really sharp." "I was just joking with Your Majesty. I didn't expect Your Majesty to recognize me with just one sentence." Tai Budian laughed. Her voice trembled somewhat uncontrollably. Chu Yang's eyes were fixed on the changes in Tai Butian's expression. Her eyes seemed to have reddened, but they returned to normal in an extremely short period of time. The agitation in the depths of her eyes was still uncontrollable, but she could already hide her emotions very well. A long career as an emperor, coupled with the difficulties and hardships in the early days, had already tempered this intelligent woman's nerves as strong as iron. Especially when she was wearing this imperial robe, there were very few things that could make her lose her composure. It was already the first time she had been so agitated just now. Chu Yang smiled and reached out to take off his mask. Looking at this face that had appeared in her dreams countless times, Tai Butian's heart ached. She almost wanted to rush up to him, hug him tightly and tell him how much she missed him. But this crazy thought was immediately forcibly suppressed by herself. What was Chu Yang thinking now? Did he know or not? Was he purely here to visit a friend? Or, Tai Butian's heart was extremely complicated. For a moment, thousands of thoughts flitted across her mind. Suddenly her heart was in a mess. At this moment she actually didn't dare to face Chu Yang. Opposite her, Chu Yang was also forcing himself to calm down. He was also thinking constantly. What should I do? She wasn't going to make it clear herself. Besides, she didn't intend to let him know about the child either. Should I make it clear now? Or should I beat around the bush first? Or should I use other methods? If I really make this girl anxious, the child will be even more hopeless. Minister Chu's heart was also in a mess. For a moment both of them were actually stunned. After a long while, Tai Budian looked away without leaving a trace. She laughed heartily and said, "Minister Chu, haven't you already transformed into a divine dragon and left the heaven? Why did you think of it today? Are you here to visit this old friend of mine?" She turned her head again, her eyes somewhat playful. "Or are you just passing by? Just visiting me in passing?" Chu Yang also smiled in a relaxed manner and said, "Your Majesty, you must be joking. I've come to visit an old friend. So, I've obviously made a special trip. How can it be that I'm just passing by? Wouldn't that be letting down the feelings between us?" Although Chu Yang's tone was very flat and he didn't deliberately emphasize it, when Tai Budian heard the words "the feelings between us," her heart was filled with emotions. His heart still skipped a beat. She blurted out, "The feelings between us?" Chu Yang spread out his hands and said, "His Majesty? It can't be after he becomes the emperor. Have you forgotten about your old friend? You've even forgotten the many times we've gone through fire and water together?" Tai Budian chuckled. A trace of embarrassment flashed across his eyes as he said, "Minister Chu really knows how to joke. Ah, could it be that in Minister Chu's heart, I am the kind of person who would turn hostile?" Chu Yang smiled mischievously. "Your Majesty's words reminded me of a saying, a story about forgetting one's feelings." Tai Budian smiled and asked, "What story?" Chu Yang smiled. He shook his head. "Forget it. It's a little indecent, especially in front of you, the ruler of a country. It's a little inappropriate." Tai Budian burst into laughter. "Since when did Minister Chu start to talk about propriety in front of me? But this story was brought up by my topic. How can I not listen to it?" Chu Yang asked, "Is your Majesty sure you want to listen?" Tai Budian nodded heavily. "I must." Chu Yang said helplessly, "Since that's the case, I'll tell your Majesty. It said that there was a patrolling soldier from the city guards who took a fancy to a popular lady in a brothel. Even in his dreams he wanted to get close to her." He started off with a story. Tai Budian blushed slightly and couldn't help but laugh. "You Chu Yang, it's been so long since we last met. You're still so unruly, always telling dirty stories." Chu Yang said, "In that case, does your Majesty still want to listen?" Tai Budian laughed heartily and said, "Why not? You and I are both men, could it be that you think we are shy?" The Emperor's words, whether it was her or Chu Yang, sounded like he was trying to cover up something that only made it more conspicuous. Chu Yang smiled meaningfully. "That's right. We're both men. There's indeed nothing to worry about." He continued, "However, although this soldier took a fancy to her, he himself was very poor. And there's no money in places like brothels. He probably couldn't get in. What should we do then?" Chu Yang frowned and said, "Finally he came up with an idea. Every time he patrolled, he would send a bouquet of flowers to the popular lady, but he wouldn't show his face. He patrolled once a day and he sent flowers continuously for 2 months." Tai Budian smiled and said, "This soldier is really thoughtful." "Yes." Chu Yang said, "Finally, after 2 months, the popular lady was moved by his sincerity and specially asked him to meet her. The soldier dressed up and went. After he went, the two of them fell in love with each other. The man wasn't a ruler and the woman wasn't a chaste woman. Thus they had an affair and hit it off. Together they went for an affair." Tai Buqian's face was a little red. She laughed dryly and said, "I still don't understand what this has to do with forgetting feelings." Chu Yang said, "I'm not done yet." The two of them hooked up. The soldier had no money and the lady didn't want it either. Thus they met every day. One day after their rendezvous, the soldier returned to the camp and received orders to crack down on the brothels. And the target of the soldier's team was the brothel he frequented. That popular lady was also the target. "What should we do?" Tai Budian asked jokingly. Chu Yang continued to narrate with a straight face, "But this soldier is really a ruthless person. He carried out the order meticulously and personally led his men to wipe out the entire brothel in one fell swoop. That girl was one of them. Moreover, it had only been less than 4 hours since he had finished fooling around." "What?" Tai Budian asked in surprise. "Doesn't he like that lady a lot? Why did he do that?" Chu Yang said with a straight face, "This popular lady also asked the same question. She looked at him with grief and indignation and asked, 'Are your feelings for me fake? You were still on my bed just now and now you're here to catch me?' Yes, how did this bastard soldier answer?" Tai Budian was even more puzzled. Chu Yang still had a straight face. He said, "That soldier said, when I took off my pants I had feelings for you. But now that I've already put on my pants, where would I have feelings for you?" "What feelings?" Tai Budian couldn't help but smile with a little blush. "Although this soldier is heartless, he's also a wonderful person." She suddenly said angrily, "You said just now that I thought of this matter. Do you mean that I'm this soldier?" Chu Yang blinked. "I didn't say that. Your Majesty said it yourself." Tai Budian couldn't help but blush a little. She was also a little annoyed. She thought of how she had treated his injuries back then. So he pretended that nothing had happened. This seemed to be somewhat similar to the soldiers in the stories, but with a different approach to achieve the same result. She thought of Chu Yang's words, "When I took off my pants, of course I had feelings for you. But now that I've already put on my pants, where would I have feelings for you? Where would I have feelings for you?" She couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Back then when she saved him, didn't she need to take off her pants? Besides, since she was willing to do so, of course she had feelings for him. If she didn't have feelings for him, why would she save him like that? But, after she put on her pants, it seemed that she had suppressed that matter. No matter how she thought about it, why did she feel that this guy was talking about her? Her Majesty was a little guilty after all. When she thought of this, besides blushing, she was also doubtful. Could it be that he already knew? When she thought of this, she couldn't help but sneak a glance at Chu Yang. She saw that this guy was beaming with joy. She relaxed and thought to herself, "Looks like this guy just told a dirty joke." Coughing, the emperor said, "Well, Minister Chu's joke has also sounded the alarm for me. Some law enforcement officers are also like this now. Cough cough, they're robbers and prostitutes in private, but when it comes to official matters they turn their backs on others. In the long run this will cause people to lose their trust. This would also cause the hearts of the people to be divided. It can't be underestimated." Chuyang felt the same way. He said, "Yes, many brothel girls now say that this bunch of city guards and security forces took off their clothes to mess with us and put on their clothes to catch us. Indeed, the quality of law enforcement officers is the most important thing to improve." Tai Budian sighed and said, "I didn't expect Minister Chu to still worry about the country and the people after leaving for so long." But she was ashamed. This bastard, what kind of shameless and hooligan words is he saying? Just as she was thinking, she saw Chuyang looking at her seriously and saying, "Your Majesty, you and I are both men. There are some things that we don't have to worry about. We can say whatever we want. Although the story is a little dirty, it's also a kind of truth, right? We're all men." Tai Budian smiled and nodded. The excitement she had when they first met had now turned into another kind of excitement. She wished she could sew this guy's mouth shut. "Who's a man like you?" he heard Chuyang say, "right? If I'm a hooligan, I'll be a hooligan. If I'm dirty, I'll be dirty, right?" None of them were women, so what was the point of being so bashful? Didn't you see that all of them were good men? Which one of them didn't speak rudely? Which one of them didn't open their mouths and curse? But who can say that they're not men? Not heroes? Tai Budian nodded against her will. "Yes, yes." Chuyang went forward affectionately and was about to put his arm around Tai Buqian's shoulder, as if it was normal for two men to be close brothers when they were together. Tai Budian hurriedly dodged and laughed dryly. Minister Chu were still in the main hall of the palace. "I heard her, am being inappropriate." Chuyang said in great puzzlement, "What inappropriate? We're all men. How many times have we gone through fire and water together? What's the big deal about hugging each other?" Second update. Today's monthly votes are so pitiful. At this critical moment, I didn't want to drag it out either. I was just about to explode. Then I took a look. My monthly votes have been pulled down by so many. I wanted to cry at once. Brothers, give me a monthly vote. Let me be happy, won't you? Chapter 1189. Tai Budian almost wanted to hold her head and cry out in pain. "Who's a man with you? Don't make it so, that, all right." He frowned and said with an embarrassed look on his face, "Minister Chu, Brother Chu, I have always strictly adhered to the ancient teachings since I was a child. I have always been serious and self-disciplined. I have never, therefore I can't accept close, physical contact. Can Brother Chu understand?" Chuyang said bluntly, "So what? We're all men. You'll get used to it." As he spoke, he reached out to hug her again. Tai Budian took another step back. "Brother Chu, please give me some time to get used to it. How about that?" Chuyang seemed to be very disappointed as he said, "Forget it then. I'll give you time to get used to it." Tai Budian relaxed. Chuyang continued, "Anyway, I don't have much to do during this period of time. I'll stay here for a year and a half and wait for you to get used to it." Tai Budian opened her mouth abruptly. "Huh? A year and a half?" "Yes." Chuyang said sincerely, "Brother Tai, you don't know. For such a long time, sometimes in my dreams, when I think about how we treated each other wholeheartedly and worked together to create great things, my blood would surge. I can't wait to reunite with you again and drink with you. I often think about how exhilarating that would be." Tai Budian took a breath and said, "Yes." He also evoked memories of the past. Chuyang said rather emotionally, "Your Majesty, we brothers haven't seen each other for many years. This time let's get together properly. Even if you chase me away, I won't leave. I'll definitely have a good drink with you. You and I brothers shall drink till we're drunk. And then, I heard that there's a hot spring in the palace?" Chuyang revealed a look of longing. He said excitedly, "After drinking, let's go to the hot spring. Soak in the pool and we'll be honest with each other." "Your Majesty. Haha, you won't be embarrassed, right?" Tai Buqian's face was pale and she almost couldn't stand. "Soak in the pool?" "Yes." Chuyang laughed. "At night, let's sleep together and talk about our separation. To be honest, I've really missed you all these years." "Sleep together?" Tai Buqian's body swayed. "Yes, it's just a bed." Chuyang explained straightforwardly, "Don't worry, I won't take up too much of your time. I won't delay you and your beautiful concubines." With that said, Minister Chu wretchedly winked. "You know. I understand. I'm going to beat you to death, you shameless bastard." Tai Budian cursed angrily. For a moment she was at a loss of what to do. Chu Yang rubbed his hands excitedly. Your Majesty, this old friend of mine has been here for such a long time. You should do something. No matter what, we should at least have a good meal, right? Yes, there's more. Where's senior sister Qianqian? Chu Yang asked. Is she in the harem? Now that you're the empress, it's naturally inappropriate for you to show your face. You won't be jealous, right? Tai Budian was taken aback. He was just thinking about this. He wondered if Qianqian had seen Chu Yang in the upper three heavens. But when he heard this, he immediately reacted. It seemed that the two of them had not met. He couldn't help but relax inexplicably. He smiled and said, Since Brother Chu has come from afar, I naturally have to treat you well. But, Brother Chu, do you think that there's a lack of food and wine in the palace? Do we need to specially prepare food for you? Chu Yang smacked his forehead. I'm confused. I'm used to wandering the martial world alone. Tai Budian smiled lightly and said, As for the Empress, cough cough. At this point he suddenly hesitated. What should he say? Wu Qianqian had already gone to the upper three heavens to look for Chu Yang. Chu Yang had left from here. As long as he went to the upper three heavens, the two of them would be able to meet. Therefore the so-called Empress is dead, could not be said. But, if he didn't say it, how could he explain that Wu Qianqian wasn't in the palace now? He had no choice but to change the topic. Brother Chu, let's go. I'll take you out for a meal. Let's have a good drink. Chu Yang smiled and said, Okay. The two of them walked out side by side. Both of them had ulterior motives. Along the way, they actually didn't speak much. There were still many officials waiting outside the hall. Tai Budian directly issued a decree to suspend court for 3 days. No one was to be seen. To put it simply, don't bother me if there's nothing. Don't bother me if there's anything. But after issuing this decree, Tai Budian immediately regretted it. Was his head kicked by a donkey? Not going to court for 3 days was obviously to accompany this scoundrel. But how was he going to accompany him? This guy would get touchy at the drop of a hat, and he even wanted to get drunk? And be honest with him? And sleep with his feet touching? This was really going to kill him. Imperial Garden on the stone table. This place was spacious and had a panoramic view of the surroundings. This was a place that Tai Budian, the emperor, had specially chosen to drink with Chu Yang. Here so many people could see he couldn't possibly go crazy drunk, right? But the emperor had obviously underestimated the thickness of Chu Yang's skin. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, Minister Chu was obviously a little tongue-tied. His eyes were also a little blurry. He was in high spirits and talked about everything. When he was happy he even stood up and gesticulated. Tai Budian sighed inwardly. In the past, when they were together, the situation was tense. Life and death were decided in an instant. There wasn't much opportunity to drink. Only today did he know that Chu Yang's alcohol tolerance was really not that good. Your Majesty, do you still remember Diwu Qingru? Chu Yang gulped down another 3 or 4 cups. It was obvious that the minister was very happy, very excited, and very much in the mood to talk. Diwu Qingru? What's wrong? Diwu Qingru. Is that big battle we had back then? Minister Chu was obviously drunk and described unsteadily. The palace maids serving around all looked at this strange guest of the emperor with strange eyes. They all frowned. How could it be so noisy in the palace? How could our emperor have such a friend? At this moment, Chu Yang waved his hand drunkenly and said to a palace maid, You come here. Pour the wine. The palace maid was holding a wine jar in her hands. Hearing this, she hurried over. But when she bent down to pour the wine, Minister Chu pinched her face and touched it. She couldn't help but cry out. Chu Yang laughed strangely. He twirled the jar with his fingers and sniffed it. So fragrant, so smooth. Tai Budian was so angry that her face turned red. She slammed the table. What are you doing? Chu Yang looked sideways and said in surprise, Your Majesty, I say, brother, what's wrong with you? She's just a little palace maid. What's the big deal? Tai Budian said angrily, How can a hero take liberties with women and children? To hell with being a hero. Chu Yang snorted and said, Your Majesty, you're the emperor now. 3 palaces, 72 concubines, beautiful women in your harem. Your brothers fought bloody battles and went through untold hardships to conquer the country for you. But you're still single now. Tai Budian was stunned. We won't be jealous even if you enjoy all the luck with women. But you're the emperor. You should at least be a little humane, right? Chu Yang was drunk. He said with a lisp, Can you really bear to do that? Do you have any idea how long I've been living as a bachelor? When I eat, the pot and stove are cold. When I sleep, I can't fall asleep. His breath reeked of alcohol. You, on the other hand, have a beautiful woman waiting on you. Now that I pinched this little girl's face, you're unhappy? Tai Butian's face turned green. Brother Chu, you know that's not what I meant. I'm just joking. Look at how anxious you are. Chu Yang's expression changed really quickly. He saw Tai Butian's sudden anger and reprimand just now. The anger just now was definitely not because I took liberties with a palace maid. Instead, it was a little hysterical. She was probably jealous. Oh, jealous? As long as you don't surrender to me, I'll make you jealous enough. We've drunk enough wine. Let's go to the hot spring. Minister Chu stood up slightly, trembling. I suddenly feel a little dizzy. Tai Butian said, I'll get the servants to bring you there. I'll go back and rest for a while. Dizzy? Don't worry, I'll be fine after soaking in the hot spring. Chu Yang said and waved his hand. Actually, I often feel dizzy too. But as long as I take off all my clothes and soak in the hot spring, I'll feel much better. Let's go, let's go. Your Majesty, you must believe me. Soaking in the hot spring, you must have someone to accompany you. Soaking and chatting at the same time is really enjoyable. Tai Butian complained in her heart. Enjoyment? If I really soak in the hot spring with you, then you'll really be enjoying yourself. This bastard. Yes, it's like this. Tai Butian rolled her eyes and said, Brother Chu, it's like this. I just had a child. Yes, the little fellow wants me to accompany him to take a nap every morning. He's probably already anxious by now and is crying non-stop. The little fellow has a bad temper. As a parent, this is also the pitiful heart of a parent. Chu Yang's eyes lit up. In that instant there was actually some dazzling light. Really? Then I must go and take a look. Brother Tai, your child will definitely be good. Tai Butian muttered in her heart. What do you mean by your child will definitely be good? But this doubt was then crushed by panic. Tai Butian was flustered. Oh no, he's going to see the child. What should I do? For a moment she actually couldn't help but want to smack herself on the mouth. Who asked you to spout nonsense? Who asked you to speak without thinking? Great, now you've gotten yourself into trouble. If Chu Yang were to see this child, whose appearance was as if cast from the same mold as his, how could he not be suspicious? Go, go, go. Let's go and take a look. Chu Yang was in high spirits. Isn't your child as good as my child? How can I not see my child? Bring me to see this little one. I've even brought a lot of gifts for our first meeting. Tai Butian was even more perplexed. Isn't your child as good as my child? How can I not see my child? These words seemed strange no matter how she listened to them. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.